Chapter 5:17. Outside the palace. More than 20 figures flew through the air, becoming clearer in the hazy night. When they got closer, it was clear that there was nothing beneath their feet. All of them were perfected Jean Dan. The 20 perfected Jean Dan wore the same attire with a bright moon and stars embroidered on it. A sect badge with a sun and moon was engraved on it hung from their waists. The leader had the strongest aura. His black hair fluttered and his skin was fair. His eyes shone brightly in the night like stars. "Senior brother Qian, why did you stop?" A perfected Jean Dan behind him asked softly with a respectful expression. The corners of the leader's mouth curled up slightly. His eyes intentionally or unintentionally glanced at the darkness not far away from him, but he quickly retracted his gaze. A mocking look flashed across his eyes as he said, "Nothing, there seems to be some unforeseen change in the imperial palace." "Are we still entering the palace?" The perfected Jean Dan behind him asked. "Of course." The leader smiled gently. "The otherworldly soldiers in the palace are all gathered in one direction. We can head over and check out what's going on." With that said, the 20 perfected Jean Dan charged into the depths of the palace and disappeared into the night before long. A while after the group of cultivators disappeared, 8 figures appeared in the darkness not far away. They emitted a cold aura like ghosts in the night. "Senior brother Mo, there are many people from Stellar Luna sect." A perfected Jean Dan being whispered with a wary expression. Among the 8 figures, one of them had a cold expression and was skinny. Faintly discernible in the night, he harumphed coldly. "What's there to fear about Stellar Luna sect? Shadowless sect isn't weak either." The leader seems to be the paragon of Stellar Luna sect, Qian Xinyu. "I heard that Qian Xinyu inherited Stellar Luna sect's ancient phenomenon, Stellar Luna, ranked 92 on the phenomenon ranking of the upper world." Another person frowned slightly and said in a low voice, "Just now. Qian Xinyu seems to have discovered us." "No worries," the skinny man said coldly, "if it's a life and death battle, I, Mo Xiaofeng, am not afraid of him at all. Come, let's enter the palace and take a look." Mo Xiaofeng waved his hand and led his 7 fellow sect members into the palace. Not long after, another group of cultivators arrived. There were about a dozen cultivators in this group. They all wore crimson Taoist robes and their bodies seemed to be burning with flames. Judging from their attire and sect badges, it was clear that these cultivators were from one of the top sects of the north region of Tianhuang mainland, Blaze Columbus Valley. Although Blaze Columbus Valley was not one of the 9 immortal sects, their strength was not to be underestimated. The person in the lead was tall and had a burning gaze. He was Blaze Columbus Valley's inner sect disciple genius, Wang Yan. "Hee, how lively." Wang Yan burst out laughing, "I didn't expect to bump into cultivators from Stellar Luna sect and Shadowless sect today. You've come at the right time. I want to see how much Qian Xinyu and Mo Xiaofeng have improved over the years." Before Huang Xiaolong's laughter faded, Wang Yan stepped into the Emperor Palace. In the depths of the Imperial Palace, Su Zimo led Xian Yi and the other 2 and continued exploring the forbidden ground. The surrounding baleful yin qi was getting denser and denser. Xian Yi and the other 2 were not in good condition. After all, the 3 of them were injured and there was no way they could recover in such an environment. Their bloodlines flowed slower and their bodies turned colder as well. Su Zimo noticed the situation of the 3 of them and frowned. The capital of Great Qian was destroyed and a great empire fell apart. 2 monasteries were removed from Tianhuang mainland. "Is that divine dragon still alive?" Su Zimo asked again. Li Ziyue shook his head. It's said that the battle even alarmed the other super sects of Tianhuang mainland and more than one emperor took action. Eventually, a few emperors joined forces and killed it here at the tragic price of an emperor's death, burying it in this ravine. The air was filled with the stench of blood at the mention of the past. The atmosphere turned extremely oppressive. Li Ziyue whispered, this ravine is known as the Dragon Burial Valley. 10,000 years ago, emperors bled and patriarchs died, burying the divine dragon. It's an ominous place. It's said that even conjoint body mighty figures like the Dharma Dao Jun couldn't make it out alive after entering by mistake. After he said that, a sinister wind blew. Instantly, Li Ziyue's face turned pale and he shuddered. He did not dare to say anything else, as though he was afraid that something ominous would happen. Chapter 518. Su Zimo went silent. At the mention of Dragon Burial Valley, Li Ziyue was not the only one, even he felt a chill run down his spine. It was as though a pair of eyes were glaring at them from the darkness, causing their hairs to stand on end, and they shuddered. Su Zimo shook his head and composed himself. Emperors were bathed in blood, patriarchs died and divine dragons were buried. This ominous place was definitely filled with many unknown dangers such that even conjoint body mighty figures could not make it out. As a perfected being Jin Dan, there was naturally no way he would take the risk. However, the four spirit herbs, rain flower, purple cloud lingji, thousand-year blood ginseng and qian essence grass, were way too rare. Where should he go to find them? The tribulation traversing elixir was way too important to the disheveled old man. Without that elixir, the disheveled old man would either have to take a huge risk to attempt a breakthrough or wait for his lifespan to wither and his blood qi to wither away. Su Zimo strode forward in deep thought with a frown. After walking for a short distance, he suddenly felt that he had stepped on something. He felt a dull pain. Su Zimo did not think much of it and continued walking. After a while, he exclaimed softly. Even if he did not circulate his inner core or release his blood qi, the toughness of his body was not inferior to divine weapons. What was it that could cause him to feel pain? Treasure. 10,000 years ago, the capital was destroyed overnight and 2 monasteries were wiped out. Countless treasures were buried in the ruins. However, Su Zimo did not discover anything along the way. The forbidden grounds of the palace before him were extremely unusual and there was a high chance that there was some sort of treasure buried within. Su Zimo turned and walked back. After more than 10 steps, he paused and glared at the ground beneath his feet with a bright gaze. Amidst the debris, a metal piece protruded and shone with a dark green glow. Frowning slightly, Su Zimo waved his sleeves and swept away the debris around him. More of the metal piece was revealed and seemed to be the handle of something. Su Zimo grabbed the handle and pulled outwards. Su Zimo's expression changed slightly. This unknown object sank into the dust and ruins, but it only moved slightly. With both hands free, Su Zimo's eyes lit up. He stepped forward and grabbed the piece of metal. The blood in his body surged as he gathered all the strength in his body. With a low roar, he lifted it up. Rumble. The ground trembled violently, as if it was about to sink in. Breaking through the dust, a huge artifact gradually revealed its true appearance. It was a bronze cauldron. Cauldrons were the most mysterious artifacts in Tianhuang mainland. In the cultivation world, cauldrons, furnaces, pagodas, and bells were not easy to control. Moreover, they did not have sharp edges. Most of the cultivators who could control these 4 weapons were not to be trifled with. The 4 weapons shared a common characteristic. There was space inside. It could imprison and suppress living beings or other weapons. The 4 weapons were interwoven with different daos and techniques. They contained different mysterious powers and were shockingly powerful. For example, a bell contained the power of sound. In the cultivation world's monasteries, there were usually Buddhist bells. The great bell rang, and the sound of Sanskrit reverberated. Demons, and monsters did not dare to approach. As for the furnace, once it was forged, it possessed the power to burn. The cauldron was a symbol of nobility and power. A cauldron was an important weapon of a country and Tao. When suppressed, it could stabilize the entire world. It had a supreme status and unparalleled power. Most of the cauldrons in the cultivation world were three-legged round cauldrons. 3 legs, 2 ears, and a single cauldron. Vaguely, it was in accordance with the principles of heaven and earth and the mysteries of the Tao. However, the cauldron before him was a 4-legged square cauldron. The 4-legged square cauldron was not as round and close to the Tao as the 3-legged round cauldron. Instead, it had sharp edges and stood in the world, looking out of place. However, the sharp edges of the cauldron gave it an exceptionally domineering and majestic aura. If the heavens do not tolerate me, I'll break the heavens. If the earth does not tolerate me, I'll crush the earth. If the heavens and earth do not tolerate me, I'll create my own. The 4-legged square cauldron was extremely similar to Su Zimo's personality. The bronze square cauldron was more than a meter tall and stood in front of Su Zimo. It emitted an ancient aura and was clearly not an ordinary item. Unfortunately, the bronze square cauldron had experienced something and was filled with cracks. It was dim and lusterless, it was already destroyed beyond recognition. What a pity, Xian Yi shook his head and sighed gently. This bronze cauldron must have been an incredible weapon in the past as well. Now that it's destroyed to this extent, even a Khanate spirit weapon is useless. There were a few destroyed Khanate spirit weapons in Su Zimo's storage bag as well. For example, although the mystic gold silk armor was destroyed and its spirit patterns dissipated, the armor itself was fine and there was even a broken Khanate spirit pattern left behind. However, the bronze square cauldron before him was almost shattered and there was no way it could be repaired. A single knock would probably turn the bronze square cauldron into a pile of scrap metal. Su Zimo laughed self-deprecatingly and lamented internally, I was thinking too much. After 10,000 years, even if there were treasures, they would have been taken away by others. How could they have left it for me? Just as Su Zimo was about to turn and leave, he frowned and glared at the bronze square cauldron before him in deep thought. A moment later, Su Zimo narrowed his eyes and 2 divine lights burst forth. Taking a deep breath, he channeled his bloodline and punched the bronze square cauldron heavily. Clang! The fist and cauldron collided. There was no dull sound of flesh colliding. Instead, there was the sound of metal clashing that reverberated endlessly. The bronze square cauldron did not budge at all. Su Zimo did not hold back this time round. Even if it was an intact superior grade spirit weapon, it was enough to shatter it. Without batting an eyelid, Su Zimo slapped his storage bag and summoned the coiling dragon seal. Su Zimo's thoughts were clear. He wanted to test out the bronze square cauldron. Furthermore, he wanted to test it with a Khanate spirit weapon. In any case, the bronze square cauldron was already damaged and useless, it wouldn't be a pity even if it was destroyed by the coiling dragon seal. If the coiling dragon seal could not destroy it, Su Zimo tossed the coiling dragon seal upwards and channeled Jin Dan, shooting out a stream of spirit energy from his fingertip into the coiling dragon seal. The coiling dragon seal shone brightly. The 6 spirit patterns shone endlessly and shone with a blinding golden light, resembling a blazing sun. At Foundation Establishment Realm, Su Zimo could not unleash the true might of a Khanate spirit weapon. But now that the power of Jin Dan was injected into the coiling dragon seal, a change happened. The divine dragon that was coiled up above actually came to life amidst the endless golden light. It raised its head to the sky and let out a resounding dragon roar. Almost at the same time, many cultivators of Stellar Luna Sect, Shadowless Sect, Blaze Columbus Valley and the others who had just entered the palace sensed the spirit energy fluctuation from the depths of the palace. Many cultivators looked over and could vaguely see a golden light shining beneath the night skies. Qian Xinyu soared into the air and gazed in the direction of the golden light with a deep gaze. His eyes lit up as he chuckled. Indeed, a great treasure has appeared. With this treasure, I'll be able to make it into the top 100 of the phenomenon ranking in the ancient battlefield 20 years later. It's a Khanate spirit weapon. In the darkness, Mo Xiaofeng of Shadowless Sect shuddered and his gaze burned. Wang Yan of Blaze Columbus Valley reared his head in laughter and no longer concealed himself. Standing in midair, he looked in the direction of Stellar Luna sect and Shadowless sect fearlessly and hollered, "I'll be taking that Khanate spirit weapon. Let's see who's more capable." Qian Xinyu sneered and sped towards the depths of the palace in a flash. Many cultivators of Shadowless sect and Blaze Columbus Valley moved as well. Chapter 519. Boom! A golden divine dragon coiled around the coiling dragon seal and descended with a terrifying might. The air current exploded with a deafening bang. Clang! The coiling dragon seal smashed heavily against the bronze square tripod, causing sparks to fly everywhere. In the end, Xian Yi and the other three were shocked. The Khanate spirit weapon, the coiling dragon seal, was sent flying. The golden divine dragon in midair cried tragically, as though it was frightened. It turned into a streak of golden light and burrowed back into the gigantic seal to hide. The light on the coiling dragon seal dimmed once more. Su Zimo waved his sleeves and put the coiling dragon seal away in his storage bag once more. The bronze square tripod stood on the spot and sank deep into the dust. However, there were no changes to it. Despite being smashed by the coiling dragon seal with full force, the tripod remained the same. It was filled with cracks, but it did not fall apart completely, nor did it shatter into a pile of scrap metal. Even supreme-grade spirit weapons would be broken by that smash from the coiling dragon seal. Furthermore, through the reaction of the coiling dragon seal, it seemed like it was the one that suffered a slight loss in that clash. So tough. Li Ziyue was secretly shocked. After pondering for a moment, Su Zimo walked forward and placed his palm on the bronze square tripod, injecting a stream of spirit energy. There was no reaction from the bronze square tripod. No matter what sort of treasure this bronze square tripod was in the past, it could only be used to smash people in the future now that it was destroyed to this extent. Su Zimo lifted the bronze square tripod and put it away in his storage bag. When he pulled it out of the dust once more, the ground caved in once more. Su Zimo's nose twitched and he exclaimed softly, "What's wrong?" Xian Yi could not help but ask when he saw Su Zimo's strange expression. Underground, Su Zimo frowned slightly and murmured softly. Xian Yi and the others could not smell it. However, he cultivated the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness all year round, and his 5 senses were extremely frightening. They were even sharper than pure-blooded ferocious beasts of the same cultivation realm. Su Zimo could vaguely smell the fragrance of herbs underground. Strange, why is there the aura of herbs underground? Su Zimo narrowed his eyes and thought to himself, could it be that there is another world under this forbidden area? After pondering for a moment, Su Zimo made a decision in his heart, and he stomped his foot heavily. There was a rumbling sound. The ground trembled and countless rocks and debris collapsed. Su Zimo leaped to the side, and just now, a huge crack appeared on the ground where he was standing. It was over 100 feet long. Rows of stone steps appeared, leading underground. This, Xian Yi and the other two were dumbfounded. The appearance of this crack made the herbal scent from within even more obvious. Su Zimo listened carefully. A moment later, he turned to the trio and said, "Let's go down and take a look. Be careful. No one knows what's down there." Li Ziyue looked worried. "I'm fine." Su Zimo shook his head. Even though there was such a huge commotion above, it was still silent below. There shouldn't be any danger since there was no commotion. Su Zimo's group of 4 walked down the stone steps. After a long time, they arrived on flat ground and looked over. Before them was a gigantic underground palace. One after another, thick stone pillars soared into the air. They were filled with the aura of time and were arranged in a mysterious order, supporting this gigantic underground palace. The palace was extremely spacious and tall. It was dozens of feet tall from the ground to the ground. Even if perfected being Jean Dan were to soar into the air, he would not be affected at all. This kind of arrangement was truly a work of art that excelled nature. It made people sigh in admiration. It was also because of such methods that the medicinal field did not wither after being buried underground for more than 10,000 years and was not discovered by cultivators who came to explore. Su Zimo circled the medicinal field and his gaze froze when it landed on the centermost spirit field. The spirit field was not small, but there was only a single stalk of spirit herb. The stalk of spirit herb was scarlet in color and swayed gently. There was a green-red fruit at the top that was only the size of an infant's fist. "What's that?" Li Ziyue noticed the spirit fruit and asked instinctively. "That should be the vermilion fruit." Su Zimo's eyes flashed with joy as he replied with a smile. The three of them widened their eyes when they heard the words vermilion fruit. The vermilion fruit was one of the most famous spirit items in the world. It was also known as the 10,000-year vermilion fruit because it bloomed every 5,000 years and bore fruit every 5,000 years. After consuming it, a perfected Jin Dan's spirit energy would surge and they could advance by a minor cultivation realm. For example, although Su Zimo had just formed his core, he could advance to mid-stage Jin Dan if he consumed the vermilion fruit. That was not all. The vermilion fruit was a great tonic for perfected Jin Dan and had many benefits. It could change his physique greatly, burn away the impurities in his body and extend his lifespan. Of course, that was for perfected Jin Dan. If an ordinary mortal or foundation establishment cultivator were to consume the vermilion fruit, they would be burned to ashes in the blink of an eye. Chapter 520. I heard that the vermilion fruit is scarlet and translucent. Why is this fruit green as well? Li Ziyue was puzzled. It's not fully ripe yet. Su Zimo said deeply, however, by the looks of it, it should be soon. In about a month's time. The vermilion fruit was not fully ripe, and not only was it not a great tonic, it was also poisonous. Any living being that approached it would be affected by the aura of the vermilion fruit and lose their minds, falling into a hallucination and unable to extricate themselves. Most of those universal spirit items had some means of self-preservation. This place was unusually hidden and no outsiders would intrude. Otherwise, there would be corpses of ignorant living beings buried around the universal spirit items. The vermilion fruit could only be harvested after it was fully ripe. Furthermore, after the fruit ripened, it would fall automatically if no one harvested it within a day. The moment the vermilion fruit came into contact with the soil, all the energy contained within the fruit would flow into the soil and return to the ground, wasting everything. Su Zimo said, dig away the spirit herbs around the vermilion fruit and abandon the ones inside. Don't approach the vermilion fruit no matter what. There's no hurry. The spirit qi here is boundless and the medicinal fragrance is rich. Make use of this opportunity to cultivate and your injuries should recover quickly, Li Ziyue said deeply. Xian Yi and Lu Hui nodded. Su Zimo frowned slightly and hesitated. The most logical choice after discovering such a treasure ground in the great Qian ruins would be to dig away the spirit herbs and leave as soon as possible. The great Qian ruins was not a friendly place. The danger did not only come from the ruins itself, there were other cultivators as well. If anyone were to barge in and catch sight of such a medicinal field, it was almost needless to say that a bloody battle would break out. When he saw that the three of them were already seated beside the medicinal field in a lotus position to recuperate, Su Zimo did not want to disturb them. At that moment, he had two other doubts in his mind. First, there must be ferocious beasts guarding the vicinity of such universal spirit items. Su Zimo believed that if there were any ferocious beasts hidden here, they would definitely not be able to escape his senses. But now, he had not discovered any traces or auras of ferocious beasts ever since he entered the underground palace. That was way too strange. Second, apart from the vermilion fruit, there were spirit herbs such as the scarlet flame bamboo, scarlet moon grass and scarlet flame fruit. It was most likely not a coincidence that so many spirit materials containing fire energy had been born. There was a high chance that the rumors of a connate spirit fire in the great Qian ruins were true. Surrounding the herb garden was a clear spirit spring that emitted dense spirit qi, nourishing the spirit field all year round. Su Zimo followed the spirit spring and went deeper into the palace. After walking 1,000 feet, they arrived at the mouth of the spirit spring. The mouth of the spirit spring was a huge pool, and in the middle of it, spring water was bubbling. It was endless all year round, and had not declined for tens of thousands of years. This pool seemed to have been specially built for people to bathe in. It was made of white jade, more than 5 meters in length and width, and 2 meters in depth. There were exquisite carvings of fish, dragons, flowers, and birds on the walls of the pool. It was extremely luxurious. The clear spring water rippled slightly under the refraction of the jade. The fish, dragons, flowers, and birds on the walls of the pool seemed to come alive. In the middle of the pool, there was a huge begonia flower in full bloom. Spring water gushed and mist filled the air. In the blur, a beautiful figure seemed to have appeared on the begonia flower. Her posture was languid and her skin was smooth like jade. She was enchanting and soul-stirring. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat and he closed his eyes hurriedly. A moment later, Su Zimo opened his eyes and focused his gaze. There was nothing on the begonia flower, only mist shrouding it with endless changes. The owner of the pool and herb garden should be a woman who had an extremely high status in the Great Qian Empire. Su Zimo reached out and fiddled with the pool gently as his eyes shone. True enough. The spirit spring was warm. There must be a powerful fire source in the depths of this place. He did not know who that woman was in the past for her to possess such power to construct such a majestic underground palace in the capital. She even made use of the powerful fire source underground to nurture a herb garden and transformed the spirit spring into a hot spring. Su Zimo circled around the hot spring with a sharp gaze and scanned the ground repeatedly, as though he was searching for something. Logically speaking, there must be an entrance to the depths of the ground near the hot spring. However, after circling a few times, Su Zimo did not discover anything. After a moment, Su Zimo suddenly paused in his tracks and his gaze landed on a divine dragon carved on the walls of the pool. There was nothing much about the divine dragon and it was lifelike with claws, scales, horns and whiskers. However, it was missing an eye on its head. Was there a mistake in the carving? Or was it corroded by time after 10,000 years? Su Zimo shook his head silently. The chances of those two guesses were extremely low. Finishing touch, those words appeared in Su Zimo's mind as he muttered, finishing touch, finishing touch. Su Zimo walked forward and extended his finger, pressing down gently on the spot where the eye was missing. With that, the walls of the pool caved in slightly. Su Zimo sensed something amiss beneath his feet and soared into the air hurriedly. The two stone slabs that were initially beneath him slid to the sides rapidly, revealing a stone staircase that led to the depths of the ground. Su Zimo praised internally. The structure of the staircase could truly be considered as a work of the gods. Even after 10,000 years, the mechanisms within did not age and operated as usual. Su Zimo sniffed at the entrance of the passageway and a cold glint flashed through his eyes. There was even a hint of demonic chi mixed in with the scorching air currents that gushed out. In that case, the ferocious beast guarding this place should be hidden in the depths of the ground. There was a high chance that a connate spirit fire existed underground. Even though he knew that it might be dangerous, Su Zimo would not give up. Su Zimo walked slowly into the passageway and gradually disappeared into the darkness. The two stone slabs above his head closed up without a sound, leaving no gap between them. The stone staircase slanted downwards. The deeper Su Zimo walked, the higher the temperature of his surroundings. A long time later, Su Zimo arrived at the end of the stone staircase. It was clear that he was deep underground and there was a dark passageway up ahead that led to an unknown place. Su Zimo did not dare to be careless and withdrew blood quencher from his storage bag. Narrowing his eyes, he headed deeper into the passageway. The temperature was rising. Su Zimo's green robes were already extremely dry and would burst into flames with a single spark. If not for his torrential blood chi and frighteningly strong physique, ordinary perfected Jean Dan would not have been able to withstand the scorching heat. If I'm not wrong, there should be a Khanate spirit fire buried deep underground. Su Zimo was gradually certain. The Khanate spirit fire was even more important to him than the 10,000-year vermilion fruit. With the Khanate spirit fire, he would be able to refine a set of 27 flying swords and increase the power of the candlelight sword formation. Furthermore, he could attempt to repair the mystic gold silk armor and black gold arrows obtained from the ancient battlefield. If he could repair the mystic gold silk armor, it would mean that he would possess a Khanate defensive spirit weapon. Coupled with his physique, ordinary Jean Dan realm cultivators would not be able to hurt him at all. He might even be able to withstand a single attack from an ordinary Jinying Jinjuan. As Su Zimo pondered, a series of red lights shone in the darkness up ahead. The deeper he went, the brighter and clearer they became. Chapter 521. He did not walk far before his vision cleared up. This was a gigantic underground cave that was filled with a fiery red hue. Heat waves surged and mist rose. Boiling lava flowed slowly in the underground cave like a scarlet sticky river. Occasionally, bubbles would pop up on the surface of the river and sparks would fly everywhere. If one focused their attention, they would be able to see that there were almost transparent flames burning on the surface of the lava. They were extremely hot and filled with spirituality. Khanate spirit fire. Su Zimo licked his chapped lips and gulped. He had expected that there would be Khanate spirit fires in the depths of the underground. However, he had not expected there to be so many of them. Furthermore, the scene before him was way too shocking. There was boiling lava everywhere as far as the eye could see. There were extremely few lands that one could truly stand on. There were probably only a few protruding reefs that were scorched red. This was a sea of lava, a nation of flames. It was way too hot. Even Su Zimo's body could not withstand the temperature and a thin layer of sweat appeared on his forehead. Su Zimo crushed a protection talisman. With a flash of spiritual light, a faint light shield appeared around his body, blocking out the heat waves emitted by the magma. Now that it was slightly cooler, Su Zimo followed the edge of the lava and stuck close to the wall, heading in. There should be a demon beast hidden here. He had to get rid of these hidden dangers. Otherwise, if he was disturbed by this demonic beast during the refining process would definitely fail. In fact, his life might even be in danger. The strength of a demon beast that could survive in such an environment was unfathomable, and there was a high chance that it was a level higher than him. There was a corner ahead. After rounding that corner, it was still a boiling sea of lava. However, in the middle of the fiery red lava, there was a rather large piece of land that resembled a lone island in the middle of the ocean. On that piece of land, a demon beast the size of a small mountain was sprawled. Its eyes were tightly shut and it was covered in long scarlet fur. It was dark and lusterless and its furry tail drooped down. It was actually a fire fox. The fox clan, as long as they cultivated to become demons, could transform into human form. All of them were beauties, and could be said to be natural beauties, charming and alluring. In the strange legends that circulated in the mortal world, she often appeared in the image of a charming scholar. She was given the title of vixen, and had an extremely bad reputation. However, after entering the cultivation world, Su Zimo knew that the Fox clan was considered a moderate faction among the demon clans. Even so, Su Zimo did not dare to be careless. He stared at the fox demon for a while. The demon fox did not move, and her eyes did not open. In fact, Su Zimo could not sense any signs of life from this demonic fox. This demon fox was already dead. The hair on its body hadn't fallen off, and its flesh hadn't rotted yet. It should have died less than 100 years ago. But then, Su Zimo was puzzled. Looking at the appearance of this demon fox, it was obvious that it was far from reaching the end of its lifespan. How could it have fallen? There was not a single wound on the body of the demon fox. How did it die? Since the demon fox was already dead, its demonic energy had long dissipated and disappeared. Where did that faint demonic chi come from when he opened the entrance of the underground tunnel? There are other demon beasts hidden here. At the same time that thought flashed through his mind, he felt as though his spirit perception was being spied on. Su Zimo's gaze shifted and instinctively landed on a black cover beside the corpse of the demon fox. The black cover looked like an iron pot that had been placed upside down on the ground. Mysterious patterns were carved on it, and a few holes could be seen in the middle. The other holes were all shining with light. There was only a pair of pitch-black holes, as though they were blocked by two black balls. Su Zimo exclaimed softly. Right at this moment, the pair of black balls in the iron cage suddenly rotated, and they were abnormally agile. How were those black balls? They were clearly a pair of gigantic eyes. There was a living being hiding beneath the iron cover and peeking at Su Zimo through the holes above. The next moment, the iron cover was lifted slowly and a fiery red little thing poked its head out carefully, revealing its true appearance. It had fiery red fur that was smooth and glossy, as though it was draped in brocade. One could not help but want to touch it. The little thing was fiery red from head to toe, and the only thing that was covered in snow-white fur was its chest. The combination of red and white made it look even more beautiful and extraordinary. A pair of ears perked up and shook gently. Blinking its bright eyes, it tilted its head slightly and looked at Su Zimo curiously. This little thing should be the bloodline of the dead demon fox. It looked like a cub and was truly adorable. The little fox's eyes darted around with curiosity and confusion. Like a child, it stood on its hind legs and extended a pair of tiny claws, raising a gigantic black pot. When he saw that, Su Zimo could not help but laugh. On the one hand, he was laughing at himself for being overly nervous. The little fox was still a cub and posed almost no threat to him. On the other hand, the little thing's posture was way too comical. When it saw Su Zimo's smile, the little fox blushed and lowered its head shyly like a human. However, right after, the little fox seemed to have thought of something and raised its head with an anxious expression, squeaking. It extended a pair of tiny claws and gestured with all its might, wanting to say something. However, it forgot that it was still holding up the iron cover earlier on. There was a loud bang. The little fox was trapped in the iron cover once more. This should have been an even more comical scene. However, this time round, Su Zimo did not laugh. That was because he could not laugh anymore. There was danger. If it was anyone else, they would definitely not understand the little fox's cries and gestures. However, Su Zimo was a dual immortal and demonic cultivator to begin with and had even lived with Monkey, Linghu, Little Crane, and the Night Spirit. Although he could not understand the language of the demon race, he could roughly guess it. Just now, the little fox's meaning was simple, it was telling him that there was danger here. This time round, his spirit perception did not warn him. However, Su Zimo was certain that there was a terrifying existence hidden here. That existence could even hide from his spirit perception. The reason why Su Zimo was so certain was not only because of the little fox's reminder. Instead, it was because he finally understood one thing. There was only a single explanation for the fox demon's death here despite its lifespan. Another powerful existence had killed it. The little fox was not the only living being in this cave, there was another one. Instantly, Su Zimo felt his hairs stand on end and chills run down his spine. He knew that he had already fallen into a huge danger and could lose his life at any time. At the same time, a faint tremor came from above the cave. Outsiders would not have been able to detect the tremors at all. However, Su Zimo's 5 senses were way too strong. He knew that an outsider had barged into the palace above. Furthermore, there were quite a number of them. Not good, Peak Master Xian Yi is in danger. Su Zimo was alarmed. While he was in a daze, a tall figure burst forth from the lava beside him with a splash. It emitted a terrifying aura and lunged towards Su Zimo. Almost at the same time, Xian Yi and the other two in the palace above and Su Zimo in the cave were all in danger. Once they advanced to the nascent soul realm, they could be referred to as fiend demons. Low-level fiend demons corresponded to Jinying Zhenjuan. Mid-level fiend demons corresponded to void reversions. High-level fiend demons corresponded to Dharma Daojun. Above fiend demons were grand demons and corresponded to conjoint body mighty figures among cultivators. Su Zimo cultivated both immortality and demonic cultivation. Furthermore, he cultivated the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness. During his cultivation, he consumed half a dragon egg, dragon blood elixir and other nourishing items. Su Zimo believed that there might be spirit demons of the same cultivation realm with ancient legacies and powerful bloodlines that could suppress him in terms of physique and strength. However, the difference shouldn't be that great. This was a complete and utter suppression. The other party was at least a low-level fiend demon and could even be a mid-level fiend demon. What should I do? Su Zimo panted slightly and channeled his bloodline to recover the sensation in his arms while thinking of a solution. He had to leave this place alive. The medicinal field in the palace above was enough to attract the attention of any cultivator. In the Great Qian ruins, it was common to kill and steal treasures. It was the most direct and effective method. If Su Zimo died here, Xian Yi and the other two would definitely not be able to leave the Great Qian ruins alive. The Jin Dan of a cultivator and the inner core of a demon, yes, you seem to have quite a number of secrets. The scarlet-armored fiend demon smirked and looked at Su Zimo as though he was looking at a piece of fatty meat dripping with oil. He said coolly, "You have such a strong physique right after forming your core. I can't bear to kill you now. However," pausing for a moment, the scarlet-armored fiend demon changed the topic and his gaze turned cold. "You still have to die. Anyone who trespasses into my territory will be killed without mercy. After I kill you, I'll slaughter those ants above who are after the vermilion fruit as well. At that time, I'll let you guys keep each other company in hell." Fufu. Su Zimo scoffed coldly. Sensing the killing intent of the scarlet-armored fiend demon, Su Zimo had nothing to fear and shouted, "Old demon, you sure know how to boast shamelessly. This place was definitely the territory of that demon fox in the beginning. You're merely an intruder. Disregarding the fact that you've taken over the place, how dare you spout nonsense here without any shame." Although the little fox felt relieved when she heard those words, it triggered the scarlet-armored fiend demon's nerves. Groar. Enraged, the scarlet-armored fiend demon gritted his sharp teeth and barked coldly, "Human ant, you have a death wish." Bang! 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 The scarlet-armored fiend demon took 3 steps and arrived before Su Zimo in the blink of an eye. Emitting a scorching aura, he reached out with his gigantic palm and grabbed at Su Zimo's head. If that attack landed, Su Zimo's head would definitely be smashed into a bloody pulp. "I'll go all out." Su Zimo's eyes shone fiercely and his Jin Dan circulated furiously, letting out a deep growl from the depths of his throat. Jin Dan phenomenon, primordial soaring serpent. Boom! A shocking primordial phenomenon appeared behind Su Zimo. The ground caved in and ravines appeared one after another. Mountains crumbled and volcanoes spewed as dust billowed. Endless lava raged on the vast land, burning everything in a radius of 90,000 kilometers. Countless living beings were turned into ashes. It was a scene of the apocalypse. The lava ocean in the phenomenon seemed to have overlapped with the lava ocean in the cave. A gigantic living being crawled out from the depths of the ground with a terrifying aura. It had the head of a snake and the body of an anaconda. Its entire body was scarlet and filled with scales that stacked together, resembling red-hot metal plates. The primordial soaring serpent had arrived. When it saw the primordial soaring serpent, the scarlet-armored fiend demon paused for a moment and could not help but shudder with a look of fear in its eyes. This was a fear that came from the depths of its bloodline, soul, and ancient memories. The fact that the scarlet-armored fiend demon could survive in the lava meant that it was a fire element demon beast. However, one of the most ancient divine beings of the fire element was the soaring serpent race. Chapter 523. The demon race had a strict hierarchy. Even though it was only the power of a phenomenon, the scarlet-armored fiend demon instinctively wanted to prostrate on the ground and bow in worship at the sight of the soaring serpent. The soaring serpent phenomenon was born from Su Zimo's Jin Dan's power of fire to begin with and was cultivated to its limits. Now that it was released in an environment filled with flames, the might of the soaring serpent phenomenon increased tremendously. Snake head, anaconda body, dragon scales and phoenix wings. The primordial soaring serpent flapped its blazing wings and opened its gigantic mouth, sucking fiercely. The boiling lava on the ground surged into the soaring serpent's mouth endlessly. The flames on the soaring serpent's body shone even brighter with a resplendent light that even the voids were about to be refined. Looking down from above, the primordial soaring serpent shifted its gaze to the scarlet-armored fiend demon with a cold expression, as though it was looking at an ant. Although it was only a Jin Dan phenomenon, it still possessed the dignity and nobility of the soaring serpent race. Go! Su Zimo pointed forward. Swoosh! Flapping its wings, flames surged into the air as the primordial soaring serpent lunged towards the scarlet-armored fiend demon with a terrifying aura. How dare you be so arrogant with a mere Jin Dan phenomenon? The scarlet-armored fiend demon hollered with a menacing expression. Suppressing the fear in his heart, he reached out with his massive palm and grabbed the primordial soaring serpent's vital spot. Pust! Suddenly, the primordial soaring serpent opened its mouth and spat out a scarlet pillar of lava at the scarlet-armored fiend demon. The scarlet-armored fiend demon was prepared as well and had already reached out with his massive palm to block the pillar of fire. The fiery red lava splashed everywhere and rolled down from the top of the scarlet-armored fiendish demon's head. However, it did not harm the scarlet-armored fiendish demon at all. The difference in cultivation realms was too great. Although Su Zimo's Jin Dan phenomenon was much stronger with the help of the lava ocean in the cave, it could not truly threaten the scarlet-armored fiend demon. Although the scarlet-armored fiend demon was expressionless on the surface, he was scared out of his wits. If this human ant before him had truly cultivated to the same cultivation realm as him, the power of that phenomenon alone was enough to kill him. Thank goodness. The red-armored fiend thought to himself. Su Zimo's expression was calm, as if he had expected this. He gently patted his bag of holding, took out a large golden seal, and infused it with spiritual power. The coiling dragon seal shone brightly. Roar! A dragon's roar shook the heavens and the earth, reverberating in the cave. Su Zimo's eyes lit up. Instead of retreating, he took a step forward. Boom! His inner core and Jin Dan circulated at the same time and his blood chi surged. Su Zimo's body expanded and the sleeves on his arm exploded, revealing an arm with bulging veins. Su Zimo raised the coiling dragon seal with his left hand and smashed it down heavily on the head of the scarlet-armored fiend demon. At the same time, Su Zimo's right hand, which was free from the divine phoenix bone, turned his palm into a knife. Clang clang clang. 5 fingernails popped out. They were like sharp daggers, flashing with a cold glint as they stabbed towards the chest of the scarlet-armored fiendish demon. Su Zimo did not hesitate for this counterattack and was decisive to kill, using all his trump cards. First, he released the primordial soaring serpent from the Jin Dan phenomenon to attract the attention of the scarlet-armored fiend demon. Thereafter, he closed in for a life-and-death fight. This was Su Zimo's only chance. His killing move was not the Jin Dan phenomenon, but the coiling dragon seal and the divine phoenix bone in his right hand. Poof! The scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile exerted strength in his palm and crushed the soaring serpent's body, causing the power of the phenomenon to dissipate. At the same time, a huge golden seal smashed down on his head, covering the sky and covering the sun. Bang! The coiling dragon seal smashed heavily on the head of the scarlet-armored fiend demon and caused his head to sway. The outer layer of his skin was ruptured and fresh blood flowed. He wasn't dead. The Khanate spirit weapon coupled with the power of Su Zimo's Jin Dan, inner core and blood chi only managed to break the scarlet-armored fiend demon's scalp when it smashed against his head. Roar! The scarlet-armored fiend demon shrieked in pain. In his eyes, Su Zimo was nothing more than a weak ant. He truly had not expected that this ant would be able to injure him. Swoosh! The scarlet-armored fiend demon's body expanded and his head that was initially human transformed rapidly in the blink of an eye right in front of Su Zimo. It was menacing and had sharp teeth. The injury this time round had enraged the scarlet-armored fiend demon completely. It was clear that he was about to revert to his true form. Demons were only at their strongest when they reverted to their true forms. Pang! 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 At the same time, Su Zimo's right hand pierced the scarlet-armored fiend demon's body and all 5 of his fingernails snapped. He did not manage to pierce in. Su Zimo's expression changed starkly and he knew that things were not looking good. Ever since he obtained the divine phoenix bone, Su Zimo had not activated it proactively and had always defended passively. The terrifying power hidden within the divine phoenix bone was only released after being stimulated intensely. But now, Su Zimo wanted to make use of the divine phoenix bone to break through the scarlet-armored fiend demon's defense, but it ended in failure. Both of his killing moves failed at the same time. Su Zimo's heart gradually sank to the bottom. Bang! Without giving him any chance, a tremendous force whipped Su Zimo heavily and sent him flying. Ugh! Su Zimo felt immense pain all over his body as he coughed out blood repeatedly. The scarlet-armored fiend demon reverted to its true form. It was a gigantic crocodile clad in scarlet armor. Standing in the air, it swung its thick tail and its forehead was stained with blood while its eyes shone with a ferocious glint. That swing of the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile's tail nearly crushed Su Zimo's organs. Su Zimo's body slid through the air without any strength, as though it was falling apart. He had lost. He could not fight back at all. Up till this point of my cultivation, I've fought countless battles and defeated strong opponents of the same cultivation realm. Am I going to die in the hands of a crocodile today? Su Zimo was in so much pain that his facial features were contorted together. His mind was in a mess and his consciousness was blurry as he fell towards the lava ocean below. Before he truly fell into the lava, the Khanate spirit fire burning on the surface of the lava had already burned Su Zimo's green robes into ashes. Initially, the little fox had an anxious expression and stared fixedly at Su Zimo, worried about his safety. Unexpectedly, Su Zimo's green robes were incinerated and vanished. Instantly, he was naked and everything that should be revealed was exposed. Ah! The little fox exclaimed and blushed. Hurriedly, it reached out with a pair of tiny paws and covered its eyes. However, right after, the gaps between the fingers of its tiny paws opened up slightly and the little fox's pitch-black, gem-like eyes could be vaguely seen. It did not want to peek at Su Zimo. It was just that it was really worried, but it couldn't look at it unscrupulously, so it could only deceive itself like this. Above the lava, the intense burning sensation stimulated Su Zimo's nerves repeatedly. Su Zimo grit his teeth and his mind jolted as clarity returned to his eyes. He could not give up. He must not give up until the final moment. Circulating Jin Dan, Su Zimo controlled his body hurriedly and grabbed his storage bag to prevent himself from falling into the lava. At the same time, he swept his gaze and caught sight of the mockery and ridicule in the eyes of the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile. It's over. The voice of the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile sounded. The next moment, Su Zimo's vision darkened. A gigantic shadow shrouded over with a blood stench. Chapter 524. A scarlet tongue that was burning with flames could be seen before his eyes with a nauseating stench. The surrounding fangs were sharp and intertwined, almost forming a cage. It was too fast. There was no time to react at all. In the blink of an eye, Su Zimo had already fallen into the mouth of the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile. Not good. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat and his expression was horrified. The scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile wanted to devour him alive. Given the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile's cultivation realm, the terrifying power released from its upper and lower jaws could definitely crush him into a bloody pulp. At that moment, it was already too late for Su Zimo to retreat. At that moment of life and death, Su Zimo did not panic. Instead, he calmed down. The more this was the situation, the more he could not panic. Otherwise, he would die on the spot if he was distracted. Su Zimo narrowed his eyes and his mind spun rapidly as he thought about how to break out of this situation. Even time seemed to have slowed down. Candlelight sword formation. No. Even a grade 3 candlelight sword formation might not be able to penetrate the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile's defenses, let alone his grade 2 candlelight sword formation. Ancient Dragonification Manual. No. Even Jean Dan's phenomenon was destroyed by the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile. It would be useless even if he conjured a true dragon. What other trump cards did he have to hold on? All of a sudden, Su Zimo's gaze flickered and a glint flashed through his eyes. Without the slightest hesitation, he slapped his storage pouch and took out a bronze square cauldron over a meter tall. The bronze square tripod exuded an ancient aura and was picked up just now in the forbidden grounds of the Great Qian ruins. Although the tripod was tattered and filled with cracks, it was abnormally sturdy. Su Zimo did not know if the bronze square tripod could withstand the bite of the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile. However, this might be his only chance at survival. In a flash, Su Zimo's tendons and bones rang with crisp crackling sounds as he curled into a ball and burrowed into the bronze square tripod. Although it seemed slow, everything happened in the blink of an eye. The moment Su Zimo entered the tripod, the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile bit down viciously. His vision turned black. Clang! There was a crisp sound. The bronze square cauldron shuddered, but it remained unscathed. Su Zimo was overjoyed. Although the bronze square cauldron had been shattered to such an extent, it was definitely a rare treasure just based on its toughness. In fact, this was also a freak combination of factors. The bronze square cauldron had existed in the Great Qian ruins for 10,000 years. Even though it was hidden in the depths of the palace, there were still some cultivators who noticed the cauldron. However, when the cultivators saw the cauldron in such a state, they didn't think too much about it. They just thought that it was a broken spiritual weapon. In the Great Qian ruins, broken spirit weapons were everywhere. Who would care about them? If the bronze square cauldron hadn't hit Su Zimo's foot and caused him pain, he wouldn't have pulled the bronze square cauldron out of the dust and debris to see the light of day again. Above the magma. Although the bronze square cauldron was tough, it did not cause much damage to the scarlet-armored giant crocodile. For the scarlet-armored giant crocodile, the fact that it did not chomp down on the cauldron was akin to biting a pebble while eating. The scarlet-armored giant crocodile did not even make a sound and was unbothered. Swaying its gigantic head, it curled its tongue and swallowed the bronze square cauldron along with Su Zimo into its stomach. For demon beasts, there were some things that they might not be able to chew through. However, once they entered the stomach, the powerful squirming power of the stomach muscles coupled with the terrifying acid in the stomach was enough to turn metal and iron into liquid. On the lone island in the middle of the sea of lava, the little fox could only watch on helplessly. Her eyes gradually dimmed as she sighed softly. After swallowing Su Zimo, the scarlet-armored giant crocodile turned around and looked at the little fox with a dark gaze, as though it was looking through the little fox from head to toe. The little fox was so scared that it shuddered and hurriedly lifted the metal cage at the side, covering itself inside. It was as though that was the only way it would be safer. The scarlet-armored giant crocodile did not conceal the lust in its eyes as it laughed sinisterly. "Little fella, you've got to grow up quickly. I'm still waiting for you to serve me in bed." Ha 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 ha. The little fox was even more terrified and shivered pitifully under the metal cage. "I heard that you foxes are all natural seductresses. You're extremely good in bed and know how to serve your master," the scarlet-armored giant crocodile laughed. "Little fella, don't worry. As long as you serve me well, I won't mistreat you. I'll make sure that you're so happy that your legs go limp and you won't want to walk." He, ha 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 ha. The scarlet-armored giant crocodile was delighted. In the demon race, if he could have a fox demon as his wife, he would definitely be happier than an immortal. It was said that the bodies of fox demons were the most perfect works of art in the world. Their skin was snow-white, smooth and supple. Their figures were voluptuous and alluring, and they emitted a faint fragrance that was enough to drive any male living being crazy. The scarlet-armored giant crocodile was a low-level fiend demon and was equivalent to the Jinying Jinjuan of the human cultivators. Although he could suppress Su Zimo with ease, he was nothing in the vast wilderness outside, especially in the 8 demon races. Fiend demons were everywhere in the 8 demon races, and he was at the bottom of the hierarchy. Fox demons were so tempting that only grand demons and old demons that were above fiend demons had a chance to possess them. Given the scarlet-armored giant crocodile's strength and status, he would never have the chance to lay his hands on them in this lifetime. However, by chance, he sensed the aura of a scorching flame. Following the map, he discovered the secret of the palace and burrowed into the depths of the cave. At that time, the little fox had not been born for long. Initially, the fox demon was a mid-level fiend demon. However, she had just given birth and was in a weak state. Due to the severe loss of blood chi, her strength decreased and the scarlet-armored giant crocodile took advantage of the situation. A massive battle broke out between both parties. The scarlet-armored giant crocodile was injured as well. However, the fox demon was even more severely injured. Both parties were entangled in a stalemate for a couple of years. Eventually, the fox demon was no match and died. As for the scarlet-armored giant crocodile's essence spirit, it was severely injured and had yet to recover to this day. The little fox saw everything, but there was nothing she could do. At that time, the scarlet-armored giant crocodile was enraged and wanted to kill the little fox right away. However, his lust was aroused when he caught sight of the pitiful look on the little fox's face. By the time the little fox grew up and condensed an inner core to take on human form, wouldn't she be at his mercy? At that time, he would have to torment the little fox more than 10 times a day. Soon. Bear with it for a little longer. The scarlet-armored giant crocodile's heart was itching as he watched the little fox grow up day by day. His lust had long burned through his entire body and he was just waiting to vent it. The scarlet-armored giant crocodile glared at the little fox with a fervent gaze as he imagined scenes one after another. In this world, he was the only overlord. At that time, he would have the fox demon as his companion and be subservient to him. What could be more enjoyable than that? The scarlet-armored giant crocodile stood in midair and was almost drooling in his fantasies. Chapter 525. Swoosh. Swallowed by the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile, the bronze square tripod fell into a gigantic sealed space along with its stinky saliva. After escaping with his life for the time being, Su Zimo heaved a sigh of relief and stuck his head out carefully, surveying his surroundings with a bright gaze. This should be the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile's stomach. The scarlet walls of its stomach squirmed continuously, emitting a foul stench. It was filled with blood vessels that resembled tiny snakes crawling on its surface in a menacing manner. The walls of its stomach were stained with a thick layer of green liquid that emitted a pungent smell. Was that the gastric juices of the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile? Su Zimo furrowed his brows slightly. He withdrew a supreme-grade flying sword from his storage bag and touched a drop of green liquid gently. Shing! Smoke billowed. Su Zimo's expression changed as he let go hurriedly. In the blink of an eye, the supreme-grade flying sword was corroded into a puddle of pus. Su Zimo was shocked. Just because if he had reacted any slower, his palm would have been corroded into nothingness. What a strong corrosive power! Su Zimo estimated that the gastric juices of the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile would be enough to turn his body into a puddle of blood within 10 breaths. No matter how strong his regeneration capabilities were, it would be useless. Gastric juices dripped and flowed down the walls of its stomach. Su Zimo hurriedly controlled the bronze square tripod to dodge, not daring to be tainted by the gastric juices. Gradually, the thick green gastric juices accumulated in the stomach. Although the bronze square tripod was surrounded by the gastric juices, it was not corroded, even the green rust on it did not disappear. Su Zimo stood in the bronze square tripod with a grim expression. The danger was not over yet. The bronze square tripod was only slightly more than a meter tall, but the gastric juices were accumulating more and more. By the time it covered the bronze square tripod, he would have nowhere to hide. Furthermore, the space in the stomach was limited. The gastric juices dripped continuously and became denser. Towards the end, there was no way he could avoid them all. Rumble. Boom. A rumbling sound came from the stomach like rumbling thunder. The muscles of the stomach began to squirm. Caught off guard, Su Zimo almost flew out of the bronze square cauldron. Su Zimo quickly steadied himself, his face paling slightly. He had to think of a way to break out of this situation as soon as possible. If this continued, he would definitely die. In the darkness, Su Zimo's expression was uncertain as he stared at the bloody stomach wall covered with viscous gastric juices. A hint of ruthlessness flashed in his eyes as he made up his mind. Su Zimo stood in the bronze square cauldron, dodging the falling gastric juices, and came to the side of the red-armored giant crocodile's stomach. This was his only chance. Su Zimo extended his right hand. Pausing for a moment, he took a deep breath and stabbed his palm into the scarlet-armored giant crocodile's stomach with a fierce look in his eyes. The flesh on his palm was the first to come into contact with the scarlet-armored giant crocodile's stomach. Whoosh! The horrifying corrosive power of the gastric juices reappeared, instantly corroding the flesh on Su Zimo's right hand, revealing the crimson-red bone inside. Divine Phoenix Bone. That was Su Zimo's idea. Since he could not activate the power of the Divine Phoenix Bone with his own strength, he had to rely on external help. The gastric juices corroded the flesh on Su Zimo's right hand and were about to continue corroding his arm through his wrist. However, the Divine Phoenix Bone was so strongly stimulated that it instantly emitted a terrifying aura. Fine flames burned on the bone palm. Cracks appeared in the void around them because of the flames. Although the scarlet-armored giant crocodile's gastric juices were strong, they were completely incinerated by the flames on the Divine Phoenix Bone. It's done. Su Zimo's eyes lit up and his blood-bone palm stabbed into the scarlet-armored giant crocodile's flesh. The Divine Phoenix flames burst forth from within the scarlet-armored giant crocodile's body. Above the magma. The scarlet-armored giant crocodile floated in midair and was fantasizing about its beautiful future when its expression changed all of a sudden. It felt a sharp pain in its stomach and almost fainted. Roar! The scarlet-armored giant crocodile let out a tragic roar. The little fox who was hiding in the metal cage was initially frightened, and it heard the tragic cry of the scarlet-armored giant crocodile and could not help but jump in fright. The little fox hurriedly looked outside through the hole in the metal cage. There was a bloody hole burned through the abdomen of the scarlet-armored giant crocodile. Furthermore, the bloody hole was expanding at a terrifying speed and would engulf its entire body before long. There was not a single drop of blood around the bloody hole, it was all burned into blood chi that dissipated into the air. The massive body of the scarlet-armored giant crocodile twisted and struggled in midair, screaming continuously, but it could not stop the spread of the flames. That was the divine phoenix flames that were released from its body. It was completely destructive. The little fox was scared silly. Instinctively, it reached out and gripped the edges of the metal cage with its tiny claws before raising the gigantic iron pot. It watched everything unfold in a daze with a confused expression. Where did that fire come from? Why was it suddenly burning? All of a sudden, a bronze square tripod flew out through the flames. A naked man jumped out from within. His hair was charred and he was pitch black all over. He looked wretched, as though he had just been struck by lightning. Clang! The little fox was stunned and dumbfounded. Its tiny claws loosened and the metal cage fell beside it. Isn't that the refined scholar from earlier on? He's not dead. That's great. The little fox beamed and felt happy for Su Zimo from the bottom of her heart. However, right after, the little fox whimpered and blushed. She covered her eyes hurriedly and lamented internally, seriously, why does this scholar love to be naked? In midair, the scarlet-armored giant crocodile had not given up on survival. He had cultivated an essence spirit. As long as his essence spirit was not dead, he would not be considered to have truly died. However, he was only a low-level fiend demon and his essence spirit was extremely weak. It was equivalent to an infant without protection and could die at any moment in this harsh environment filled with lava. However, the scarlet-armored giant crocodile could not care less. The might of the flames was way too terrifying and was about to burn his head. At that time, he would definitely die without a chance to even release his essence spirit. Swoosh! A streak of light burst forth from the top of the scarlet-armored giant crocodile's head. Su Zimo focused his gaze and saw that it was an almost transparent little crocodile. An essence spirit. It was truly a fiend demon. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. The essence spirit of the scarlet-armored giant crocodile was extremely weak and did not seem like a combat essence spirit that was unafraid of the scorching sun and astral winds. The essence spirit of the giant crocodile in midair shivered from the heat of the lava beneath and its aura turned even weaker. A low-level fiend demon was equivalent to the Jinying Jinjuan of the human cultivators. Although their essence spirits could leave their bodies, they would be injured if they encountered any disturbances and could not linger outside for too long. The essence spirit of the giant crocodile fled towards the exit of the cave with all its might. Suddenly, Su Zimo opened his mouth and roared. Kill! His voice exploded beside the ears of the essence spirit of the giant crocodile like thunder. Thunderclap Kill was released. The essence spirit of the giant crocodile shuddered and its light dimmed even more as cracks appeared on its essence spirit. His essence spirit was injured to begin with and had yet to recover. Right now, his essence spirit was on the verge of destruction after suffering such severe injuries consecutively. If the foreign cultivators truly harbored evil intentions, Xian Yi and the other two's lives would be in danger. Underground Palace. Stellar Luna sect was the first to arrive and more than 20 Jin Dan perfected beings barged into the underground palace without concealing their tracks. Before long, they caught sight of the medicinal field before them. What a rich medicinal fragrance! What a huge medicinal field with so many 10,000-year-old spirit herbs. This trip is truly worth it. Look, that's the 10,000-year vermilion fruit. The eyes of everyone from Stellar Luna sect lit up and burned. It's about to ripen. We came at the right time. A Stellar Luna sect cultivator said fawningly, in my opinion, only senior brother Qian is qualified to obtain that 10,000-year vermilion fruit in the north region of Tianhuang mainland. Qian Xinyu had his hands behind his back in a relaxed manner. Although he was touched by those words, he merely smiled without saying anything. Foo-foo. Suddenly, a cold laugh sounded from the darkness. A series of phantom-like figures walked out one after another. There were only 8 of them, but every single one of them exuded an extremely dangerous aura that was shuddering. They're from Shadowless Sect. Senior Brother Qian, the leader, is the paragon of Shadowless Sect, Mo Xiaofeng. Qian Xinyu acknowledged with a calm expression, as though he had expected this. Mo Xiaofeng sneered and said coldly, Qian Xinyu is the only one in the North region who's qualified to obtain the 10,000-year vermilion fruit. What big words! Aren't you afraid of biting your tongue? Oh. Qian Xinyu smiled gently and asked instead, what do you have to say, Brother Mo? Nothing much. Mo Xiaofeng's expression was cold. I'm just reminding someone out of goodwill that it's not your turn to dominate the younger generation of the North region. Insolent. Do you think you're worthy of being mentioned in the same breath as our senior brother Qian? Senior brother Qian cultivated the Jin Dan phenomenon and is ranked 92nd on the phenomenon ranking. Who do you think you are? Many Stellar Luna sect cultivators hollered. Mo Xiaofeng chuckled. If it's a life and death battle, it's still unknown who will emerge victorious. The moment he said that, the atmosphere between Shadowless Sect and Stellar Luna Sect turned tense and a huge battle could break out at any moment. Ha ha ha. Suddenly, a long laugh sounded, boorish and unrestrained. How can I miss out on such a lively scene? Mo Xiaofeng's expression changed when he heard that voice. Qian Xinyu, who was initially calm, frowned as well with a hint of wariness in his eyes. More than 10 perfected Jin Dan cultivators barged into the underground palace wearing scarlet robes. Their leader was tall and dignified as he strode over with a scorching aura. It was none other than the paragon of Blaze Columbus Valley, Wang Yan. Qian Xinyu's Jin Dan phenomenon, Stellar Luna Starlight, and Wang Yan's Jin Dan phenomenon, Raging City Blaze, were both ranked on the phenomenon ranking. Furthermore, Raging City Blaze was ranked 89th, slightly higher than Stellar Luna Starlight. Very good, very good. Wang Yan swept his gaze across the crowd with a burning gaze and nodded with a raging battle intent. Since everyone's here, I'll be taking this medicinal field and the 10,000-year vermilion fruit. I'll take down anyone who disagrees. Humph. Mo Xiaofeng harumphed coldly. How big of an appetite do you have? Aren't you afraid of dying from overeating? Brother Wang, there's always a first-come, first-served basis. Qian Xinyu shook his head gently and said indifferently, Stellar Luna Sect was the first to discover this medicinal field and vermilion fruit. Ha 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 ha. Wang Yan roared in laughter and pointed to the 3 people beside the medicinal field. Qian Xinyu, stop pretending to be a gentleman. If we're talking about first come, first served, the 3 of them were the first to discover this place. What has that got to do with you? Xian Yi and the other 2 had been beside the medicinal field the entire time. However, after perfected Jin Dan of Stellar Luna Sect, Shadowless Sect and Blaze Columbus Valley barged in, they argued about how to divide the medicinal field as though there was no one else around, completely ignoring the 3 of them. It was only at this moment that everyone's attention shifted to the 3 of them. Chapter 527. Xian Yi and the other 2 exchanged glances and grumbled internally. The auras of the perfected Jin Dan of the 3 sects were strong and any one of them could take on the 3 of them. The 3 paragons in the lead looked even more frightening. Xian Yi and the other 2 had adventured outside before and knew the dangers involved, they did not dare to act rashly. Now that everyone was looking at them, Li Ziyue coughed gently and bowed to the 3 sects with cupped fists, nodding and smiling courteously. I am Li Ziyue, a cultivator of Misty Peak. Greetings, fellow Taoists. After Li Ziyue said that, the perfected Jin Dan of the 3 sects were expressionless. Some of the cultivators even had mocking looks in their eyes, as though they were looking at an idiot or a dead man. Ignored. Completely ignored. Li Ziyue's smile froze on his face. Frowning slightly, Xian Yi grit his teeth and said with cupped fists, just now, fellow Taoist, you mentioned the order of arrival. We were indeed the first to discover this medicinal field. However, the three of us only want the rain flower, purple cloud lingji, blood ginseng, and qian essence grass to extend the lives of our seniors. We won't take anything else. Fellow Taoists, please allow us to do so. We'll be extremely grateful. You guys don't have the right to speak. Qian Xinyu interrupted Xian Yi with a cold gaze. Who are you guys? What right do you have to talk about order of arrival? Shadowless Sex Mo Xiaofeng's expression was cold and his eyes were filled with killing intent as he said word by word, you guys are not allowed to touch a single stalk of the spirit herbs here. Wang Yan's eyes were filled with mockery as he reared his head in laughter. How interesting. You guys are still thinking of taking away spirit herbs even at the brink of death. Ha 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 ha. The ignorant are truly fearless. To be fair, the three of them were already extremely fortunate to be able to escape unscathed given the circumstances. If not for the fact that he wanted to extend the disheveled old man's life, Xian Yi would not have taken the risk to ask for 4 spirit herbs. What should they do? Xian Yi was anxious. Right now, even if the three of them wanted to leave empty-handed, the cultivators opposite them would not agree to it. Moreover, although Su Zimo's whereabouts were unknown, he should still be in the underground palace. If the three of them left, what would happen to Zimo? Given Zimo's character, he would definitely not compromise if he encountered something as such. However, Xian Yi and the other two could tell that none of the dozens of cultivators were easy to deal with. The three leading geniuses were even more terrifying. Zimo had just stepped into the Tao of Jin Dan and it was still unknown what Jin Dan phenomenon he had cultivated. How could he be a match for this group of perfected ones? Both of you, no matter who this medicinal field belongs to, there's no need for our 3 sects to fight. Let's settle other matters first. Qian Xinyu said calmly. Agreed. Shadowless Sex Mo Xiaofeng sneered coldly at Xian Yi and the other two. Wang Yan nodded and said, no problem. Xian Yi and the other two's hearts sank. Qian Xinyu's expression was indifferent as his eyes shone with a dark golden glow. He asked faintly, the three of you, hand over your connate spiritual weapons. There are some things that you shouldn't take. Innate spiritual weapon. Xian Yi and the other two were stunned for a moment, their faces filled with confusion. He. Mo Xiaofeng sneered, continue pretending. You're still lying even at death's door. When he heard that, Xian Yi's heart skipped a beat and a look of realization flashed through his eyes. The connate spiritual weapon that Qian Xinyu was referring to must be Su Zimo's coiling dragon seal. Prior to this, Su Zimo used the coiling dragon seal to test the toughness of the bronze square tripod. The light that burst forth was way too blinding in the night. When Wang Yan saw the change in Xian Yi's expression, he could not help but grin. Why? You've remembered? Li Ziyue gulped and forced a smile. Fellow Taoists, I'm afraid there's a misunderstanding. The three of us truly don't have any connate spiritual weapons. Mo Xiaofeng was murderous as he said coldly, it's not up to you guys to decide whether you have any or not. Hand over your storage bags. Otherwise, die. Xian Yi and the other two had terrible expressions. They had tolerated time and time again but the other party was relentless. If they handed over their storage bags, it would be equivalent to handing over half their lives. Notwithstanding the fact that they did not have any connate spiritual weapons, even if they did, there was no way they would give it up. Xian Yi gripped his fists slightly and suppressed the rage in his heart, saying in a deep voice, fellow Taoist, we're all perfected Jin Dan. Don't go overboard. Ha! Oh my, you're angry. Interesting. Xian Yi's reaction caused a series of laughter. The cultivators of the 3 major sects had mocking expressions as they chuckled and discussed in a relaxed manner. When Li Ziyue saw that the situation was amiss, he said hurriedly, fellow Taoists, the 3 of us can swear that we definitely don't have any connate spiritual weapons on us. If we violate this oath, we'll definitely be punished by the heavens. You're merely 3 dead people. You guys have no right to negotiate terms here. Mo Xiaofeng sneered once more and said sinisterly with a dark gaze, since you guys don't want to hand it over, I'll take it personally. Swash! Xian Yi and the other 2 merely felt their vision blur, and Mo Xiaofeng had already vanished from where he was just earlier. So fast. Xian Yi and the other 2 were shocked. The 3 of them were not in a good state. It had been less than 4 hours since they were injured, and Lu Hui's abdomen injury had yet to recover. Xian Yi shielded Lu Hui behind him and waved his sleeves, summoning 12 supreme-grade flying swords right away, conjuring 2 hexagonal sword formations without holding back. Li Ziyue grit his teeth and channeled Jin Dan furiously, hollering softly, "Ethereal Sword Rain." Xian Yi and the other 2 released their full strength the moment they attacked. Whoosh! Whoosh! When he saw that, Qian Sinyu's lips curled as he remarked leisurely, "Interesting. To think that you've managed to cultivate a Jin Dan phenomenon as well. However, it's way too weak." Mo Xiaofeng's figure reappeared beside Xian Yi and the other 2 with a cold gaze. If Li Ziyue's Jin Dan phenomenon was released a little slower, Mo Xiaofeng would definitely be able to sneak in front of the 3 of them silently. The 3 of them might have been corpses by now. Right now, the ethereal sword rain protected the 3 of them. If Mo Xiaofeng wanted to sneak in, he would have to dispel the Jin Dan phenomenon. How dare you embarrass yourselves with such a lousy Jin Dan phenomenon? Mo Xiaofeng channeled the Jin Dan within his body, and 2 dark lights were reflected in his eyes as he hollered softly, "Jin Dan phenomenon, shadowless twin shuttles." 2 dark golden shuttles appeared behind Mo Xiaofeng like 2 short spears, emitting a sharp aura. How dare a firefly compete with the radiance of the moon? Break it! Mo Xiaofeng pointed forward. Swoosh! Swoosh! The shuttles vanished and 2 dark lights appeared in midair. They burst forth with a terrifying energy fluctuation and collided fiercely into the rain curtain. Bang! Bang! There were 2 deafening sounds. Li Ziyue grunted dully. The rain curtain swayed and cracks appeared one after another. Countless raindrops seemed to have stopped in midair. The 2 dark lights pierced through the rain curtain and tore through the air. Clang! Clang! 2 hexagonal sword formations blocked the dark lights. Clang! Clang! There were 2 crisp sounds. Suddenly, the dark lights spun and burst forth with a powerful spiraling force that collided against the hexagonal sword formations. Pang! Pang! The 12 supreme-grade flying swords were sent flying. The sword formations dissipated instantly. Chapter 528. Almost at the same time, Li Ziyue's Jin Dan phenomenon and Xian Yi's hexagonal sword formation collapsed. Both of them shuddered and blood drained from their faces. Swoosh! Swoosh! 2 dark streaks of light arrived before the 2 of them in the blink of an eye. Lu Hui withdrew 2 protection talismans from her storage bag hurriedly and crushed them, causing a bedazzling light barrier to shield the 2 of them. Snap! The dark streaks of light collided against the protection talismans and the light barrier shattered instantly. Xian Yi and the other 2 were sent flying by the tremendous force and fell more than 10 meters away. The wound on Lu Hui's abdomen split open once more and stained her clothes red. Xian Yi and Li Ziyue spat out mouthfuls of blood each. Their auras were weak and the spirit energy within their bodies was chaotic as they felt a piercing pain in their meridians. Although the shadowless twin shuttles were not ranked on the phenomenon ranking, they still possessed a terrifying killing power. Mo Xiaofeng soared into the air and 2 dark streaks of light circled around him. The power of phenomenon surged with a domineering aura. Mo Xiaofeng looked at Xian Yi and the other 2 who fell to the ground with a cold expression. Why? You're still not going to take out your connate spirit weapons even at the brink of death? Li Ziyue grit his teeth. We don't have any Khanate spirit weapons at all. Stubborn? Mo Xiaofeng scoffed. Since that's the case, you guys won't have a chance anymore. The Khanate spirit weapons are with me. Come and get them if you want. Suddenly, a sinister voice sounded from the depths of the palace with a chilling killing intent. Instinctively, everyone turned towards the source of the voice. A figure appeared before everyone's eyes. Black hair, green robes, refined features and resembled a scholar. For some unknown reason, this seemingly frail scholar exuded a shuddering dangerous aura. The scholar strode over and everyone felt as though he was a bloodthirsty ferocious beast that was closing in slowly with a thick blood stench in the air. Many cultivators present frowned. Wang Yan and Qian Xinyu were slightly moved and their eyes shone. To think that there would be another cultivator in the depths of the underground palace. Moreover, when did this person appear? No one noticed at all. Even the two of them didn't notice. Before long, the green-robed cultivator arrived before them. I was wondering what kind of ruthless character it was. So it's just an early Jin Dan. Another one has come to die. Many perfected Jin Dan used their spirit-peering art to check the cultivation realm of the newcomer. After obtaining the result, they all heaved a sigh of relief. No matter how strong a beginner Jin Dan was, he wouldn't be able to cause much of a commotion. Zimo, you're here. When he saw Su Zimo make an appearance, Xian Yi sighed in his heart, and he knew that the matter today was absolutely impossible to resolve peacefully. Su Zimo came to the side of Xian Yi and the other two. He squatted down and checked their bodies. His expression only relaxed when he saw that there was no danger to their lives. Lu Hui's expression was grim as she whispered, Zimo, these people aren't easy to deal with. Why don't we throw our Khanate spirit weapons out and let them fight amongst themselves while we make use of the chaos to retreat? It doesn't matter if you suffer a little. Surviving is the most important thing. Not bad. Li Ziyue also said in a low voice, there are too many people on the other side, and 3 of them are very strong. You are definitely not their match, so don't be rash. Heis. Xian Yi sighed gently. If you see that things aren't going well, Zimo, kill your way out yourself. Don't let your emotions get the better of you. It's fine, I'll take care of it. Su Zimo's expression was calm as he gestured for the 3 of them to be at ease. Wang Yan and Qian Xinyu glared at Su Zimo for a moment before feeling relieved. Although this scholar gave off an extremely dangerous feeling, he was in a terrible state. His face was pale and there was even a hint of blood in his breath. This person was severely injured, as though he had just been through a fierce battle. It was a false alarm. There's nothing to fear. Qian Xinyu's lips curled as a thought flashed through his mind. Lad, hand over your Khanate spirit weapon and I can leave your corpse intact. Mo Xiaofeng looked down with a domineering aura. Su Zimo stood up slowly and did not even look at Mo Xiaofeng. He merely surveyed his surroundings and swept his gaze past Qian Xinyu, Wang Yan and the others before asking instead, who else wants my Khanate spirit weapon? Everyone was stunned. Was this scholar an idiot? Did he not understand the situation he was in? When Mo Xiaofeng saw that Su Zimo was ignoring him, he felt extremely embarrassed and his eyes were filled with killing intent as he barked coldly, Lad, I'm asking you a question. Su Zimo still did not raise his head to look at Mo Xiaofeng, as though he did not know that this person existed. Nobody's replying to me. Su Zimo raised his brows slightly and smiled, saying earnestly, I'll make myself clear then. If you guys leave now, you'll still have a chance to live. Don't regret it when a fight breaks out later on. Ah. Ha. Initially, the crowd went silent. Thereafter, everyone burst into laughter. Some people clutched their stomachs while others bent over as though they had heard the greatest joke in the world. Every single cultivator looked at Su Zimo as though they were looking at an idiot. Su Zimo laughed as well. In midair, Mo Xiaofeng gripped his fists tightly with a menacing expression. The two dark golden shuttles trembled slightly and even let out a buzzing sound. Su Zimo's repeated disregard was driving him crazy. You must have a death. The veins on Mo Xiaofeng's neck popped and his blood boiled as he snarled word by word. Finally, Su Zimo raised his head slightly and looked at Mo Xiaofeng, replying indifferently, "You're the one who has a death wish. Kill." Mo Xiaofeng could no longer hold it in and hollered. Instantly, the power of his phenomenon burst forth and the two shuttles turned into dark streaks of light, arriving instantly. Su Zimo's expression was unchanged and he was not flustered. Swiping his storage bag gently, a gigantic golden seal appeared in his palm with a domineering aura, as though it could suppress everything. When they saw the gigantic golden seal, Wang Yan and Qian Sinyu's gazes turned incomparably fervent. The tiny bit of apprehension in his heart had also vanished into thin air. Not for anything else, but for this innate spiritual weapon, everything was worth it. The power of Jin Dan churned wildly within Su Zimo's body. The coiling dragon seal expanded rapidly in his palm and shone brightly like a blazing sun. It flew out and blocked in front of Su Zimo. Clang! Clang! The two dark streaks of light could not dodge in time and collided against the coiling dragon seal. However, they were repelled instantly. The coiling dragon seal did not budge at all. Mo Xiaofeng's body swayed and a look of fear flashed through his eyes. His Jin Dan phenomenon was almost destroyed by that collision. You want to see a Khanate spirit weapon? Su Zimo's gaze was clear as he smiled sinisterly. I'll let you see all you want. Boom! The coiling dragon seal descended from the skies, as though it had transformed into a gigantic golden mountain peak that possessed a tremendous might. Roar! The dragon's roar reverberated through the world and coiled around the mountain peak, causing it to descend at an even faster speed with an even more ferocious force. Many Jin Dan perfected beings were shocked and retreated immediately against the envelopment of the coiling dragon seal. Snap! The coiling dragon seal collided against Mo Xiaofeng's shadowless twin shuttles and shattered his Jin Dan phenomenon. Exclamation point. Mo Xiaofeng shuddered and spat out a mouthful of blood with a dispirited expression. Mo Xiaofeng merely felt a huge shadow looming over him and he could not escape in time. Frightened out of his wits, he crushed a protection talisman hurriedly and shouted, "Fellow Taoist, please show mercy." Before he could finish, a lump of blood appeared beneath the golden mountain peak. The paragon of shadowless sect died without a corpse under the coiling dragon seal. Chapter 529. Instantly, the underground palace fell silent. The cultivators from the Stellar Luna sect, Shadowless sect, and Blaze Columbus Valley widened their eyes in disbelief. Prior to this, none of them had expected that this seemingly frail scholar would be able to kill Shadowless sect's paragon the moment he attacked. The shadowless twin shuttles that destroyed the ethereal sword rain, hexagonal sword formation and protection talismans were like paper against the suppression of the Khanate spirit weapon, unable to withstand a single blow. Decisive to kill. That was the only word left in everyone's minds. It was way too ruthless. Unless it was a paragon of the immortal, Buddhist or fiend sects, no other perfected Jin Dan cultivator would dare to act so recklessly in such a situation. Mo Xiaofeng's death meant that there was no turning back for both sides. Although everyone was shocked, their gazes were still cold. To them, the three of them were severely injured and their combat strength was negligible. However, Su Zimo was alone. Although he was strong in head-on combat, there was no way he could defend against the combined attacks of so many perfected Jin Dan cultivators. Furthermore, Su Zimo was only at early-stage Jin Dan. The remaining 7 cultivators of Shadowless sect dispersed gradually and disappeared into the darkness without leaving behind any shadows, as though they had vanished. Qian Xinyu and Wang Yan glared at the gigantic golden seal on the ground with fervent gazes. The fact that an early-stage Jin Dan cultivator could release such terrifying killing power was enough to prove that the gigantic seal was extraordinary. Any one of them would have their combat strength doubled at the very least if they obtained it. 20 years later, they would definitely be able to make a name for themselves in the intermediate ancient battlefield with that seal. All right. Wang Yan burst into laughter. Fellow Taoist, I'm rather impressed with your methods. Hand the Khanate spirit weapon to me and I can make the decision to let you join Blaze Columbus Valley and follow me from now on. Su Zimo smiled with a mocking look in his eyes. Wang Yan was not annoyed when he saw that and was still all smiles as he declared loudly, a wise man submits to circumstances. The current situation is clear. You and Shadowless Sect are irreconcilable enemies. The cultivators of Stellar Luna Sect want to kill you for your treasures as well. Pausing for a moment, Wang Yan proudly declared, right now, I'm the only one who can save you. Wang Yan had already made it very clear. As long as Su Zimo was willing to submit to him and hand over the Khanate spirit weapon, he could guarantee that Su Zimo would not die. In fact, he would even go to war with Shadowless Sect and Stellar Luna Sect. The Stellar Luna Sect had more than 20 perfected Jin Dan masters, while the Shadowless Sect had 7. Blaze Columbus Valley only had more than 10 perfected Jin Dan. However, Wang Yan was confident that his Jin Dan phenomenon was enough to suppress Qian Sinyu's. You can rest assured. Senior brother Wang is a man of his word. He will never go back on his word. What are you thinking about? Senior brother Wang has personally offered you a way out, yet you're still hesitating? Behind Wang Yan, a few Blaze Columbus Valley cultivators were dissatisfied with Su Zimo's silence. In their opinion, if Su Zimo knew what was good for him, he should hand over his Khanate spirit weapon right now and kowtow. I think, you guys are mistaken about something. A moment later, Su Zimo spoke slowly, right now, it's not about who can save me. It's about who can save you guys. When he heard that, the smile on Wang Yan's face vanished and his expression darkened. Fu. Qian Xinyu chuckled at the right time and shook his head gently, rubbing his palms. Interesting. Brother Wang, he doesn't need you to save him at all. He doesn't care about Blaze Columbus Valley either. Everyone from Blaze Columbus Valley was already fuming to begin with. Qian Sinyu's words added fuel to the fire. Bloody hell, what a reckless fool. Senior brother Wang, you don't have to do anything either. I'll go and bring that person's head back. Everyone from Blaze Columbus Valley was agitated. Wang Yan did not comment and merely nodded slightly. The perfected Jin Dan who requested for help understood and turned towards Su Zimo, saying, Today, I'll let you know the reason for your death. I'm Blaze Columbus Valley's Tianheng. Don't die in the hands of someone else in hell. It's him. He can be considered as a genius of Blaze Columbus Valley. His true strength is ranked in the top 5 of Blaze Columbus Valley's perfected Jin Dan. A murmur sounded from the crowd of Stellar Luna Sect. Tianheng did not channel any spirit energy or summon any spirit weapons and walked over barehanded. Su Zimo's expression was unchanged as he swept his gaze across Tianheng's footsteps and understood. All of a sudden, when Tianheng was about 10 feet away from Su Zimo, he suddenly accelerated. There was a boom. Tianheng extended his leg and stomped on the ground. His blood qi burst forth and he was like a sharp arrow, arriving before Su Zimo instantly. His killing intent was so sharp that it was almost corporeal. However, Su Zimo was motionless, as though he could not react at all. Although Tianheng was a late-stage Jin Dan, he did not underestimate his opponent. He knew that Su Zimo possessed a Khanate spirit weapon and was not easy to deal with. That was the reason why he pretended to be weak and attacked when they were close enough. Prepare to die. Tianheng's expression was menacing as he swung his fist and smashed it towards Su Zimo's head. Su Zimo sneered and did not dodge. Instead, he punched in reverse and met the incoming fist head-on. Snap! The sound of bones cracking could be heard. The bones in Tian Heng's palm were completely shattered and his wrist was broken by the punch, revealing white bones. Instantly, he broke out in cold sweat. Tian Heng's face was already contorted. However, Su Zimo did not stop at all. After shattering Tian Heng's palm with a single punch, he closed in and opened his palm as though he wanted to blot out the skies. A huge shadow shrouded Tian Heng's head. Su Zimo's palm landed on Tian Heng's head and pressed down forcefully. Crack! 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 Tian Heng's massive head was pressed into his chest and the tendons and bones on his neck snapped. He burst into a blood mist and died on the spot. Tian Heng had never expected that Su Zimo would be able to discern his strength with a single glance. More than that, he did not expect that Su Zimo was almost invincible within 10 feet. In the eyes of Su Zimo, all of Tian Heng's actions, schemes and attacks were like a joke. In less than a single round, Blaze Columbus Valley's Tian Heng fell to the ground as a corpse. Almost at the same time, a cold glint appeared behind Su Zimo's blind spot. Immediately after, a faintly discernible shadow appeared on the ground. The cultivator of Shadowless Sect had attacked. The timing was impeccable. The only thing he miscalculated was that Tian Heng died too quickly. The cicada senses autumn before the wind blows. Alerted by his spirit perception, Su Zimo swung his arm in reverse without turning back. His arm was like the trunk of a primordial divine elephant as it tore through the void. With a loud thud, it struck the incoming sword with a crisp sound. Clang! There was an ear-piercing sound as the sword vibrated violently. Right in front of countless gazes, the superior-grade sword that contained the power of Jin Dan was shattered into pieces by Su Zimo's seemingly soft arm and scattered on the ground. Poof! Reaching out, Su Zimo tapped the glabella of the Shadowless Sect cultivator gently. A bloody hole appeared. Scarlet blood gushed out. Su Zimo's physique was way too strong. He could snap spirit weapons with his palm and that tap of his could pierce a cultivator's skull with ease. In the blink of an eye, another 2 perfected Jin Dan cultivators were dead. However, the massacre had only just begun. Chapter 530. How dare you! Wang Yan hollered and wanted to stop them, but it was too late. Tian Heng died way too quickly and did not even last a single round. Wang Yan was enraged at the sight of Blaze Columbus Valley's Tian Heng's death and his eyes seemed to be burning with flames. Kill him! Qian Xinyu waved his hand with an indifferent expression. The many perfected Jin Dan cultivators behind the 2 paragons swarmed forward with murderous intent and attacked one after another. The cultivators that followed Wang Yan and Qian Xinyu to the Great Qian ruins were not ordinary people in their sects and there were extremely few early-stage Jin Dan cultivators. Most of them were at mid-stage Jin Dan and late-stage Jin Dan. Instantly, sword chi streaked through the air and resplendent lights filled the skies. Many flying swords and spirit weapons howled over like a torrential downpour. Many spirit arts released terrifying energy fluctuations and the spirit chi in the void was almost boiling in a chaotic manner. Attacks were everywhere. Su Zimo looked frail and weak. Standing in the center of the battlefield, he was like a small boat in a raging sea that could be destroyed at any moment. However, his expression remained calm and unruffled, as if he could not sense the danger he was in. Su Zimo's black hair fluttered and his eyes shone with 2 divine lights. Taking a deep breath, he opened his mouth. Kill! His voice was thunderous and shook the 9 heavens. After Su Zimo cultivated his inner core, his skin, flesh, tendons, bones, marrow and organs had transformed once more. The power of Thunderclap Kill increased as well. This roar was like the roar of an ancient demon. It came out of nowhere, causing the entire underground palace to tremble and dust to fall from the sky. Initially, shadowless sect cultivators who were hiding in the darkness with the help of light, environment, blind spots, and many other factors shuddered and revealed themselves. The cultivator closest to Su Zimo had a pained expression and his features were contorted. Hunching his body, he covered his ears with both hands and blood seeped through the gaps of his fingers. Su Zimo's roar ruptured that person's eardrums. The flying swords, spirit artifacts, and even spirit arts that were aimed at Su Zimo paused for a moment. For others, this moment might not have been much. However, for some cultivators, this was the border between life and death. Su Zimo moved and pounced on the nearest shadowless sect cultivator. Taking advantage of the fact that this person was stunned by the thunderclap kill and had yet to regain his senses, he leaped up and lightly tapped the top of his head with the tip of his foot. Crack! The top of this person's head was torn apart, and he died on the spot. With the help of that person's head, Su Zimo's figure flashed and changed directions, lunging in front of another shadowless sect cultivator. The shadowless sect cultivator was shocked and could not react in time. The moment he raised his arm, Su Zimo punched him in the chest. Puff! This person's chest had caved in deeply, and his back was protruding. Su Zimo's punch had penetrated the man's body, and he fell to the ground, coughing up blood. His eyes dimmed, and it was clear that he would not survive. Rise! At the same time, Su Zimo's eyes shone brightly as he waved his sleeves. Not far away, the coiling dragon seal rose from the ground and shone with a blinding golden light. With a loud boom, it resembled a golden mountain with a coiling dragon that stood in midair. Swoosh! Su Zimo controlled the coiling dragon seal and crushed it towards the few Stellar Luna sect cultivators opposite him. Poof! Poof! The coiling dragon seal smashed down and the three perfected Jin Dan cultivators could not defend against it at all. Instantly, they were crushed and the superior grade spirit weapons in their hands were shattered into pieces by the coiling dragon seal. Many cultivators were shocked. Although this frail scholar was only at early stage Jin Dan, his physique was terrifyingly strong and his melee combat strength was shocking. His attacks were decisive and clean, all of them were killing moves without any hesitation. As long as he closed in, it was almost impossible to escape death. In the blink of an eye, almost 10 perfected Jin Dan cultivators died in the hands of Su Zimo. Humph! Qian Sinyu's expression turned terrible when he saw his fellow sect members die one after another. In his opinion, even if Su Zimo had a Khanate spirit weapon, it would be easy for him to deal with an early-stage Jin Dan cultivator. After all, there were dozens of perfected Jin Dan cultivators attacking at the same time. Even if Su Zimo had 3 heads and 6 arms, he would not be able to defend against them. However, as time passed by, be it Qian Sinyu or Wang Yan, both of them felt troubled. Su Zimo was far more frightening than they had imagined. This person was extremely strong in melee combat and his movement technique was extremely agile. With a pair of spirit wings, he weaved through the crowd and nobody could injure him. A moment later, the perfected Jin Dan cultivators of the 3 major sects died one after another with heavy casualties. If this continued, their fellow sect members would be massacred by Su Zimo without the need for them to attack. In reality, the reason why Qian Sinyu and Wang Yan did not attack right away was because they were wary of the other party. Both of them thought that Stellar Luna sect and Blaze Columbus Valley would definitely engage in a fierce battle after Su Zimo's death. The Khanate spirit weapon was not the only thing they would be fighting for. Both of them were wary of the other party. But now, the development of the situation had completely exceeded their expectations. Narrowing his gaze, Qian Sinyu suddenly said, "Brother Wang, there's no need for us to drag things out like this." "Oh? What do you mean?" Wang Yan asked instead. "Let's join forces and kill this person first. We'll decide who the Khanate spirit weapon and medicinal field will belong to later." Qian Sinyu said in a deep voice. "All right." The moment he said that, both of them struck at the same time with a tacit understanding. Meteor fall. Qian Sinu's fingers moved and he conjured his spirit perception before pointing forward and hollering softly. Spirit chi gathered towards Qian Sinu's fingertip endlessly. Boom! In the blink of an eye, a gigantic star appeared in front of Qian Sinu and fell rapidly towards Su Zimo's head. The star was falling at an extremely fast speed and its surface even burned with raging flames, emitting a terrifying might that almost pierced through the vast land. Su Zimo's expression was unchanged as he slapped his storage bag and 18 supreme-grade flying swords appeared before him. Under Su Zimo's control, the 18 flying swords streaked through the air, leaving behind streams of sword chi that emitted a chilling aura. Clang! 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 The 18 flying swords vibrated and buzzed, forming a sword formation rapidly. Like a blazing sun, it spun continuously and charged towards the incoming star. Boom! The meteor collided with the sword formation with a deafening bang. As the two forces collided, a huge energy halo suddenly burst forth and spread out, sweeping in all directions. The shockwave of the energy was extremely terrifying as it surged towards the medicinal field not far away. The 10,000-year vermilion fruit in the center swayed gently and released an invisible energy that dissipated the shockwave silently. Clang! Clang! The sword formation swallowed up the star, and the sharp light cut the star's body, continuously cutting it, leaving behind many marks. After pausing for a moment, the star suddenly exploded. The candlelight sword formation could no longer be maintained and dissipated. When he saw that, Qian Sinu's expression darkened. That spirit art could be considered as a killing move of Stellar Luna sect. The truly powerful part was not the moment the meteor fell, but the terrifying power released when it exploded at the end. If a cultivator could not sense it, they would definitely be severely injured by the explosion of the star. Unfortunately, that spirit art was blocked by the candlelight sword formation and destroyed the star. It could not get close at all, let alone injure Su Zimo. Chapter 531. The moment Qian Sinu attacked, Wang Yan's fingertips danced as he conjured a spirit art. Instantly, the surrounding air heated up. Flame spear! Wang Yan hollered and a 10-feet-long spear appeared in the void before him. Blazing with flames, the body of the spear was scorching red and sparkling. Go! The flame spear howled over with a rumbling heatwave and crackling sounds could be heard in the air. Su Zimo channeled his bloodline while controlling the candlelight sword formation to defend against Qian Sinu's meteor fall. The power of thunder hidden in his bloodline rumbled and a long spear that shone with electric arcs was formed in Su Zimo's palm. Boom! The two powers of thunder and fire collided with a deafening bang in midair. Although Su Zimo's cultivation realm was 2 levels lower than Wang Yan's, he was an unprecedented extreme foundation establishment cultivator. Although he was an early-stage Jin Dan, he was not inferior to a late-stage Jin Dan in terms of strength. Not to mention, this lightning spear was condensed from the Void Lightning Manual. The Void Thunder Manual was a mental cultivation technique left behind by the Thunder Emperor in his later years. Although it was only an incomplete page, it possessed an unimaginable might. The fire spear and lightning spear collided. Lightning flashed and flames splattered everywhere. In that clash, Wang Yan did not manage to gain any advantage and was even slightly disadvantaged. Su Zimo defended against the attacks of the two paragons, Wang Yan and Qian Sinu. He spun the coiling dragon seal and smashed it towards the crowd. Tragic cries sounded one after another as a blood mist spewed and filled the palace. When Su Zimo was at Extreme Foundation Establishment, he could already kill early-stage Jin Dan and mid-stage Jin Dan with the Coiling Dragon Seal. Now that he had formed his core, he could release the full might of the Coiling Dragon Seal. Coupled with the terrifying power of the Jin Dan realm, ordinary perfected Jin Dan cultivators would not be able to withstand the suppression of the Coiling Dragon Seal. Even with perfected Jin Dan's Jin Dan avatar, he could only struggle at death's door and barely prolong his life. Under the continuous attacks of the coiling dragon seal, the Jin Dan phenomenons of the group of cultivators could not withstand the pressure and were smashed into pieces, teetering on the verge of collapse. After Wang Yan and Qian Xinyu made their moves, not only were they unable to stabilize the situation and suppress Su Zimo, the cultivators of the three sects were defeated one after another. "Brother Wang, it's already come to this, don't hold back anymore." Qian Xinyu gritted his teeth and said with a dark gaze. Wang Yan's expression was solemn as a fierce glint flickered in his eyes. In reality, even though the two of them attacked, they didn't use their full strength. They still had a card up their sleeves to guard against each other. To Reverend Jin Dan, the Jin Dan phenomenon was his most powerful killing technique. However, once Jin Dan's phenomenon was released, it could not be condensed again in a short period of time. If either Wang Yan or Qian Xinyu released the Jin Dan phenomenon first and killed Su Zimo, the power of the phenomenon would weaken and they would lose their strongest trump card. With that, they would definitely be at a disadvantage in the fight for the Khanate spirit weapon and medicinal field. Therefore, even though both of them joined the battle on the surface, they had different intentions and were holding back. But now that the cultivators of their sects were heavily injured, if this dragged on, the two of them might be the only ones left. Both of them could not hold on any longer. "All right." A vicious glint flashed through Wang Yan's eyes as he made up his mind and said in a deep voice, "Let's join forces and release the Jin Dan phenomenon to kill that lad first." "I agree completely." Qian Xinyu nodded. The two of them exchanged glances and had a tacit understanding as they channeled the power of Jin Dan wildly to support the Jin Dan phenomenon. At that moment, the two paragons of different sects had a rare tacit understanding. Although neither of them said it, they knew in their hearts that they were already feeling the pressure in the face of Su Zimo's terrifying combat strength. Jin Dan phenomenon, solar Luna starlight. Qian Xinyu's eyes shone like the bedazzling stars in the night sky. A starry sky appeared above his head with a bright moon and twinkling stars, scattering endless starlight. Although it looked mysterious, it contained a shocking killing intent and released a shuddering energy fluctuation. Su Zimo narrowed his eyes. Solar Luna starlight, ranked 92 on the upper world phenomenon ranking. When one formed their core, they resonated with the bright moon and stars, comprehending the sun and moon and communicating with the power of the stars to create phenomenons. Although it was not created by an ancient mighty figure, it was still quite powerful. Up till this point of his cultivation, this was the first time Su Zimo had encountered a truly powerful Jin Dan phenomenon. Although it was ranked last on the phenomenon ranking, the power of the solar Luna starlight was enough to make him feel threatened. Jin Dan phenomenon, raging city blaze. An ancient city appeared behind Wang Yan. It was majestic, as though it had reversed the flow of time and shocked the world. Then, a raging fire ignited in the ancient city. The city walls were scorched red and countless living beings struggled, shrieked and wailed in the flames. The city had turned into a fiery hell. Raging city blaze, ranked 89 on the upper world phenomenon ranking. It was created by an ancient mighty figure. This person encountered a calamity when he was young and the city he was in was affected by a huge battle between cultivators. True fire burned and tens of millions of living beings were turned into ashes. Initially, this ancient mighty figure was destined to die as well. By chance, he was rescued from the ruins by a passing cultivator and was in excruciating pain from the fire poison. Later on, this person cultivated with great perseverance and eventually broke through. When he formed his core, he recalled the scene of his childhood. Raging city blaze gave birth to a phenomenon and greater mastery of his core. When raging city blaze descended, even Qian Xinyu's celestial bodies dimmed significantly. The raging inferno not only contained the power of the flames, but also an inextinguishable resentment and anger of the ancient almighty from back in the day. Li Ziyue's face turned pale when he saw the two Jin Dan phenomenons. There were strong and weak Jin Dan phenomenons. His ethereal sword rain was a famous Jin Dan phenomenon in the territory of Great Zhou. However, it was nothing in the face of these two phenomenons. Even if he could release it now, it would most likely dissipate instantly. The two Jin Dan phenomenons descended and the entire underground palace seemed to be trembling. Qian Xinyu stood in midair and strolled amidst the celestial bodies with an otherworldly elegance. He walked towards Su Zimo with a cold expression and said slowly, "It's time to end this." Su Zimo sneered and waved his sleeves. Sweeping up the coiling dragon seal, he smashed it towards the incoming Qian Xinyu. Bang! 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 In midair, the coiling dragon seal was struck by the endless starlight and could not get close at all. Wang Yan strode forward. The blazing ancient city behind him smashed towards the gigantic seal with the divine dragon coiling in midair. Bang! Although the coiling dragon seal was repelled, the Jin Dan phenomenon of raging city blaze merely swayed for a moment without weakening. Su Zimo's expression was unchanged as he retracted the coiling dragon seal. When he saw that, Wang Yan reared his head in laughter. "Lad, although Khanate spirit weapons are good, they're still external objects at the end of the day. Jin Dan phenomenons are the most fundamental methods of a perfected being Jin Dan." Die. The remaining cultivators soared into the air one after another and summoned their spirit weapons and arts, charging forward once more. Chapter 532. The descent of the two Jin Dan phenomenons, solar Luna starlight and raging city blaze, coupled with the full-powered attacks of more than 10 Jin Dan perfected beings, released a shuddering energy fluctuation. Xian Yi's expression changed as he shouted, "Zimo, hurry and escape. Don't bother about us." "That's right, hurry and leave before it's too late." Li Ziyue shouted as well. In Xian Yi's opinion, Su Zimo had only just formed his core. Even if he managed to cultivate a Jin Dan phenomenon, he would definitely not be able to withstand the pressure of the two phenomenons. However, Xian Yi believed that given Su Zimo's strength, there was a high chance that he could break out of the encirclement with all his might. Jin Dan phenomenon. Su Zimo stood proudly and sneered. Just now, he was fighting against the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile in the underground cave beneath the palace and was unable to conjure the primordial soaring serpent phenomenon just now. However, he had another Jin Dan phenomenon. Against the suppression of the two phenomenons, Su Zimo was unmoved. His green robes fluttered and his eyes shone with a bedazzling brilliance. Boom! Initially, the skies were filled with stars. In the blink of an eye, dark clouds filled the skies with lightning and thunder. Qian Xinyu's expression changed. Wang Yan frowned as well with a grim expression and murmured in confusion, "Jin Dan phenomenon." Before the Jin Dan phenomenon was fully revealed, it had already affected Qian Xinyu's solar Luna starlight. What sort of Jin Dan phenomenon was it that possessed such terrifying might? Rumble. Boom. The skies suddenly collapsed and an apocalyptic torrent gushed down. Countless meteors fell and the ground quaked as all living beings wailed. It was a scene of apocalypse. Instantly, the starlight dimmed. Qian Xinyu's solar Luna starlight showed signs of collapsing. Qian Xinyu's face was pale as he channeled the power of Jin Dan furiously to support the Jin Dan phenomenon and stabilized the situation. In the skies, the torrent gushing down towards the burning ancient city. Shing! An ear-piercing sound rang out, and thick smoke billowed. More than half of the raging fire was instantly extinguished. Fire and water intertwined, and it looked as if this ancient city was about to be destroyed, washed away by the flood. This is impossible. Wang Yan stared with his eyes wide open, as if flames were ignited within them, as he uttered a deep roar. What kind of rare phenomenon is this? I've never heard of it before. There's no way it can defeat my blazing city. In truth, the reason he did not recognize the origin of Su Zimo's Jin Dan phenomenon was because the true form and power of this Jin Dan phenomenon had yet to be fully revealed. Even though it was only the tip of the iceberg, the two Jean Dan phenomenons on the phenomenon ranking, Solar Luna Stellar Light and Raging City Blaze, were already on the verge of collapse. Many spirit weapons turned into streaks of light and tore through the air with cold killing intent. Before they could get close to Suzimo, the speed of many spiritual tools gradually decreased, revealing their original bodies. They trembled continuously and emitted waves of mournful cries. Suppressed by the power of the phenomenon, none of the spirit weapons could get close to him at all. Boom! 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 Meteors fell, densely packed. Many spirit weapons were smashed into dust. The flood surged and engulfed figures one after another. No matter how they struggled, they could not escape from this terrifying apocalyptic power. This was a scene that shocked the world. Xian Yi and the other two were rooted to the spot, dumbfounded. They had expected that Su Zimo might have cultivated some sort of powerful Jean Dan phenomenon. However, they had not expected it to be this terrifying. At that moment, none of them realized that something even more terrifying was yet to come. On the battlefield. Almost at the same time, Wang Yan and Qian Xinyu swiped their storage bags and retrieved a bunch of elixirs, stuffing them into their mouths. Both of them were experienced and could tell that Su Zimo was in an extremely bad state with weak blood qi and spirit energy. As long as they persevered, they would definitely be able to kill Su Zimo. Humph! Su Zimo sneered and the Jean Dan spun slowly. In between the heaven and earth, an incomparably massive ancient demon appeared with a terrifying aura. Its four legs were like heavenly pillars as it stood in the torrential currents motionlessly, suppressing the raging tides. Its tough shell supported the shattered firmaments and covered the surroundings, blocking the falling meteors. This is, Wang Yan and Qian Xinyu were drained of blood and their eyes were filled with endless fear. Could it be, it's the primordial divine turtle? The two sucked in a breath of cold air and cried out in alarm. That Jean Dan phenomenon was not on the previous phenomenon ranking. However, that did not mean that the primordial divine turtle was not strong enough. It was clearly recorded in the phenomenon ranking that when the phenomenon ranking was first established, the two Jean Dan phenomenons of the divine turtle and soaring serpent were in the top 10 of the phenomenon ranking. However, it was lost by now. To think that the ancient and powerful Jean Dan phenomenon would reappear in the world today. Furthermore, the moment it descended, it displayed an incomparable and shuddering impact. The green-robed scholar stood on the shell of the divine turtle with his hands behind his back. Despite the torrential currents beneath his feet and the falling meteors in the skies, his expression did not change. He was calm and composed, as though he was a divine being that looked down on the masses. His black hair danced and his robes fluttered. His eyes were bright and deep and his aura was strong, as though he could suppress everything in the world. How could someone like that be defeated? Even though that person was merely standing there silently, Wang Yan and Qian Xinyu could sense an invincible and unstoppable aura. The divine turtle roared into the skies and its eyes shone with a divine light that could not be looked at directly. Crack! 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 Almost at the same time, Wang Yan and Qian Xinyu's Jean Dan phenomenons collapsed. Both of them fell and spat out a mouthful of blood. Among the three major sects, some of the Jean Dan perfected beings who managed to dodge the torrential currents and meteors seemed to be frozen by some mysterious power. With a bang, they turned into blood mists without any corpses and their essence spirits were destroyed. Up till this point of the battle, of the dozens of cultivators from the three major sects, only Wang Yan and Qian Xinyu were left. The other perfected beings of Jean Dan were all dead. Chapter 533. In the north region of Tianhuang mainland, Stellar Luna Sect and Blaze Columbus Valley were both stronger than Misty Peak. As paragons of those two sects, Qian Xinyu and Wang Yan had life-saving methods and were difficult to kill to begin with. Furthermore, Su Zimo was severely injured by the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile in the underground cave and was dragging his severely injured body with him. As Qian Xinyu and Wang Yan fled in panic, Su Zimo's Jin Dan phenomenon could no longer hold on and gradually faded. Even the Jin Dan was throbbing with pain. That was a sign that his spirit energy was at its limits. Su Zimo was murderous and his gaze was ferocious. He must not let the two of them escape. Now that the two of them had escaped, the location of the medicinal field would definitely be exposed. There was still a month before the 10,000-year vermilion fruit ripened, and there were too many variables as to who would end up with it. Killing intent surged in Su Zimo's heart as he consumed a spirit recovery elixir. Leaping into the air, he chased after Qian Xinyu and Wang Yan who were fleeing. Although he was severely injured and his spirit energy was depleted, Su Zimo's speed was frighteningly fast with the burst of his bloodline and the support of ethereal wings. Qian Xinyu and Wang Yan did not leave Su Zimo's line of sight the entire time. Using fire escape, Wang Yan was the first to charge out of the underground palace. He was followed by Qian Xinyu, followed by Su Zimo. He was about to catch up to Qian Xinyu after sprinting. Qian Xinyu felt an evil gust of wind behind him and was scared out of his wits when he turned back. The two of them were less than 100 feet apart. Qian Xinyu's face was pale and his gaze was dark as he grit his teeth. Fellow Taoist, I've already given up on the medicinal field. There's no need for you to be so ruthless, right? How about giving me a chance to live? Ruthless? Su Zimo sneered and asked instead, just now, have you thought about giving me a chance to live? You. Qian Xinyu was speechless. Su Zimo said word by word, it's too late to beg for mercy now. After all, Qian Xinyu was injured by the black tortoise's phenomenon. Along the way, Qian Xinyu's condition was deteriorating. Blood trickled down the corner of his mouth again. Don't force me. Qian Xinyu's eyes were filled with madness as he panted and yelled, you won't get anything out of it even if we really fall out. You dare to threaten me? Su Zimo's eyes were filled with killing intent as he coldly said, I'll kill you first. Su Zimo hated being threatened the most in his life. Qian Xinyu's words were completely cutting off his own path of retreat. Sensing Su Zimo's killing intent, Qian Xinyu knew that he was doomed. He shouted hysterically, there is a 10,000-year-old medicinal field here, and a 10,000-year-old red fruit that is about to ripen. Qian Xinyu used almost all of his strength to shout. The cultivators near the great Qian ruins moved one after another. In reality, even without Qian Xinyu's shout, some cultivators had already noticed the changes in the depths of the palace and were rushing over. Some of the commotion had already reached Su Zimo's ears. Cultivators were starting to appear in his line of sight as well. This could not drag on any longer. With a cold gaze, Su Zimo slapped his storage bag and withdrew a moon-white gigantic bow. Pausing in his tracks, he knocked an arrow and aimed it at Qian Xinyu's back. Whoosh! 5 spirit patterns appeared on the moon-white gigantic bow and shone brightly. If anyone focused their attention, they would be able to vaguely see a 6th spirit pattern on the bow. However, the 6th spirit pattern was not completely condensed and was illusory. It was the quasi-connate spirit weapon, Moon Concealment Bow. Channeling his bloodline, Su Zimo drew the bow with his shocking divine power as though he was hugging a full moon. Shoo! The arrow tore through the air at an extremely fast speed, disappearing in a flash like a bolt of lightning in the dark night. Qian Xinyu was impressive as well. When he sensed the killing intent behind him, he did not even turn back and crushed a protection talisman right away, dodging to the side with all his might. Exclamation point. A streak of blood light appeared. Even so, Qian Xinyu was still a step too slow and his right chest was pierced by Su Zimo's arrow, causing blood to gush out like a fountain. Unless it was a top-tier protection talisman, there was no way one could defend against the power of the Moon Concealment Bow. Although the arrow did not pierce Qian Xinyu's heart, it pierced through his lungs. However, it also pierced through his lungs. The tremendous force tore his lungs apart, almost shattering Qian Sinyu's internal organs. Ugh, ugh, Qian Sinyu's throat was like a leaking bellows as he let out a series of strange roars. Even if you kill me, you won't be able to live. Ugh, ugh. Qian Sinyu coughed out blood repeatedly and his eyes were bloodshot. Although he could barely stand in midair, there was no way he could survive. Whoosh! 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 The sound of arrows tearing through the air echoed. One after another, dark streaks of light entered Qian Sinyu's body. In this chase, the two of them had already left the forbidden grounds of the palace and arrived outside. Not far away, a pair of archers patrolling the palace shot dozens of malevolent arrows, almost riddling Qian Sinyu with holes. Bang! Qian Sinyu's body exploded, turning into a blood mist that filled the air. Stellar Luna Sect's Jin Dan Paragon was buried in the Great Qian ruins. Using fire escape, Wang Yan had already fled far away and was almost out of Su Zimo's line of sight. It was not impossible for Su Zimo to kill Wang Yan. As long as Su Zimo released blood escape, he would definitely be able to catch up to Wang Yan. Or perhaps, Su Zimo could circulate his inner core and release his blood qi to increase his speed. By then, Wang Yan would not be able to escape death either. But now, more and more cultivators had arrived. Neither of those methods were appropriate. Furthermore, if Su Zimo gave chase, it would mean that the three of them were trapped in the underground palace. The three of them were severely injured and could be in danger at any moment. Within the palace, the dozens of archers shifted their gazes towards Su Zimo once more. Moving in unison, they loaded their crossbows and were prepared to attack once more. After pondering for a moment, Su Zimo chose to return to the forbidden area of the palace and sprinted in the direction of the underground palace. Before he arrived at the entrance, Su Zimo had already caught sight of many cultivators swarming into the underground palace from afar. Qian Sinyu's final words brought about quite a bit of trouble. All of you, get lost. Before they arrived, Su Zimo sprinted over with his black hair fluttering. Chapter 534. Who is that person? Why is he so domineering? I don't know. However, I saw the paragon of Stellar Luna Sect, Qian Sinyu, being killed by him. What? The expressions of many cultivators changed starkly. Qian Sinyu cultivated Luna Stellar Luna that was ranked 92 on the previous phenomenon ranking and was a famous paragon of the North region. To think that he would die in the Great Qian ruins today. That person is merely at early stage Jin Dan and only has a bow in his hands. Even if that bow is a quasi-connate spirit weapon, how can he defend against so many of us? Someone shouted with a cold expression. The intentions of the perfected Jin Dan were clear. He wanted to make Su Zimo the target of everyone. Ha! Su Zimo smirked and glared at that person, saying coldly, of course, a bow can't defend against everyone. However, it's enough to kill you. Wielding the moon concealment bow, Su Zimo drew the bowstring. Splash! The bloodline in his body surged like a tidal wave, bursting forth with a shocking momentum. Many cultivators were shocked. Tsunami blood. Some cultivators exclaimed. Creak! 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 The bowstring quivered and was gradually drawn with a series of creaking sounds. The moon concealment bow was not heavy to begin with. However, it was impossible to draw the bowstring without a shocking divine power. That was also the reason why the killing power of the moon concealment bow was so terrifying. The arrow that was released not only contained the might of the moon concealment bow as a quasi-connate spirit weapon, it also contained the power released by the combination of the bowstring and bloodline. The arrow tore through the air like a bolt of lightning with a ferocious might. A bright moon hung in the night sky. The bright moonlight seemed to be guided by some sort of power and surged into Su Zimo's embrace endlessly, emitting a shuddering energy fluctuation. It was as though Su Zimo was hugging a full moon in his embrace. The cultivator who spoke felt his hairs stand on end when he was pinned by the moon concealment bow as he gasped. In fact, he even had an illusion in his heart. There was no way he could dodge that arrow. In an instant, cold sweat broke out on his forehead. His sweat flowed into his eyes, but he did not dare to blink. He was afraid that if he blinked, he would never be able to open his eyes again. His vision was covered by sweat and was slightly blurred. Su Zimo's figure seemed to have disappeared. There was only a full moon in the sky, releasing a bone-chilling killing intent. Wang! Su Zimo loosened his fingers, and the bowstring trembled violently. A ray of divine light shot out and disappeared into the void. Perfected Jin Dan's pupils constricted violently. He had just taken out a defensive spirit weapon from his storage bag when his chest was pierced by an arrow and blood gushed out. This person fell from the sky and died on the spot. Fast, too fast. Even though he was prepared for it, he still couldn't stop it. This person is vicious and merciless. His actions don't seem to belong to the righteous path. He's definitely someone from the devil's sect. Cultivators of our generation should exterminate demons and devils. Everyone, let's join forces and kill him. Another cultivator loudly shouted. In the great Qian ruins, there was no distinction between good and evil. The reason why the group of cultivators wanted to kill Su Zimo was none other than the medicinal field, the 10,000-year vermilion fruit and the moon concealment bow in his hands. You guys just want to kill me and steal my treasures. Why do you have to find such a dignified reason? Su Zimo saw through everything and did not waste his breath on the group of cultivators. Sneering coldly, he drew his bow and shot another arrow. A ray of divine light flashed. Bang! In midair, the body of the perfected Jin Dan who shouted exploded. Pierced by the arrow, his body turned into a blood mist without a corpse, he could not react at all. Shoo! The fifth arrow. The perfected Jin Dan who charged over held an exquisite mountain peak in his palm and summoned it right away. Go! The mountain peak expanded rapidly and shone brightly, emitting a thick and majestic aura as it shielded the person. Boom! There was a deafening bang. The mountain peak was pierced by the moon concealment bow and exploded on the spot. The perfected Jin Dan who was hiding at the back was struck by countless gravel and his tendons and bones were shattered. Coughing out mouthfuls of blood, his gaze dimmed as he fell from midair. That superior-grade defensive spirit weapon was destroyed by a single arrow from the moon concealment bow. Shoo! The sixth arrow. It tore through the air with a boundless killing intent. Jin Dan phenomenon, sand pagoda formation. A perfected Jin Dan hollered with a clear gaze. The power of the phenomenon surged and endless sand billowed in front of that person. In the blink of an eye, a towering pagoda was formed. Poof! The arrow was extremely sharp and pierced through the sand pagoda with unparalleled strength. The pagoda cracked and a bowl-sized hole appeared. Even so, the arrow was exhausted and fell powerlessly, buried by the sand. Breaking out in cold sweat, the perfected Jin Dan heaved a sigh of relief and could not help but laugh into the skies. As long as the sand pagoda could defend against Su Zimo's moon concealment bow, it meant that Su Zimo would never be able to break through his Jin Dan phenomenon. That was because the sand pagoda possessed the ability to regenerate itself. As long as his spiritual energy was not exhausted, there would be endless wind and sand pouring into it, constantly repairing the cracks on the sand dune tower and repairing the huge arrow hole in the tower. Buzz! Another sound of bowstring vibrating could be heard. That person's laughter stopped abruptly. The seventh arrow was released. It pierced through the bowl-sized hole in the pagoda that had yet to be repaired, turning into a dark streak of light that entered that person's mouth. That person's head was pierced and his body collapsed stiffly. Instantly, the sand pagoda collapsed. 7 consecutive arrows. 6 perfected Jin Dan cultivators died one after another and their blood stained the skies. Among them, there was even a cultivator who had cultivated a Jin Dan phenomenon who died here, killed by 2 arrows. The group of cultivators that were initially charging forward were scared stiff. Even if they could swarm forward and kill that scholarly green-robed cultivator, who could defend against his arrows during that period of time? None of them wanted to die under the arrows of the moon concealment bow. Poof! The 8th arrow. A pillar of blood spewed out and the perfected Jin Dan cultivator at the front died. The massacre continued. Su Zimo did not hesitate at all and was decisive to kill. His gaze was resolute and his expression was cold as he repeated the same actions repeatedly. Draw the bow, knock the arrow, and shoot. In reality, he was in an extremely bad state. After being severely injured by the fiend demon's scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile in the underground cave, he did not have time to rest at all and came out to fight against the cultivators of the 3 major sections. After a fierce battle, Su Zimo's spirit energy was already depleted. Right now, even if he was filled with spirit energy, he would not be able to release Jin Dan phenomenons within a short period of time because he had just released the divine turtle and soaring serpent phenomenons. Therefore, Su Zimo had to suppress and kill with an incomparably domineering stance to intimidate everyone. The light of the moon concealment bow shone continuously and the sound of the bowstring vibrating was like the sound of death. Each time it sounded, a perfected Jin Dan cultivator would die. In midair, Su Zimo stood in midair. His black hair danced and his gaze was sharp. Exuding a sharp killing intent, he was truly like a fiend celestial that could kill the heavens and slay immortals. It was shuddering. In the blink of an eye, there were more than 20 corpses on the ground. Gradually, cultivators began to retreat. An atmosphere of fear quickly spread through the crowd. More and more cultivators retreated. Nobody was willing to charge at the front and be shot to death by that cold and terrifying green-robed fiend celestial. Chapter 535. Many cultivators retreated continuously and in the blink of an eye, they had already distanced themselves from Su Zimo. Everyone watched from afar, not daring to advance. Even so, no one left. The entrance to the underground palace that had been buried for 10,000 years had appeared and everyone wanted to check it out. Sneering internally, Su Zimo put away his moon concealment bow and entered the underground palace in a flash. Sprinting, Su Zimo arrived at the medicinal field before long. Zimo, are you alright? When they saw Su Zimo return, Xian Yi and the other 2 hurried forward. Just now, they were severely injured and did not have the chance to fight at all in that huge battle. Now that they had rested for a while and consumed a few elixirs, the 3 of them recovered some of their stamina and their injuries were stabilized for the time being. When Su Zimo saw that the 3 of them were still in good condition, he said in a deep voice, "We can't stay here for long. Harvest the spirit herbs in this medicinal field and leave the great Qian ruins as soon as possible." Wang Yan had already escaped. There were still many cultivators outside and the number of cultivators gathered here was increasing. There was no way this underground palace could be hidden. There was still a month before the 10,000-year vermilion fruit ripened. Within this month, the north region would definitely be in turmoil and the great Qian ruins would definitely attract many perfected Jin Dan. The situation would turn even more chaotic and complicated. Any carelessness would cause one to die within. Even Su Zimo could not guarantee that he would be able to escape unscathed, let alone the 3 of them. The 3 of them understood. The 4 of them split up to harvest the spirit herbs in the medicinal field and store them in their storage bags. During this period of time, Su Zimo ate a blood ginseng and a scarlet flame fruit directly, leaving the 3 of them dumbfounded. One had to know that many spiritual herbs could not be consumed directly. The medicinal effects were too intense and boundless and required other herbs to neutralize them. This was the first time the three of them had seen someone consume the blood ginseng and scarlet flame fruit raw as Su Zimo did. Zimo, why you're going to be fine if you eat raw like that? Xian Yi could not help but ask. Ugh, Su Zimo burped and spat out a hot breath that reeked of blood. It's fine. It tastes pretty good. Su Zimo smacked his lips, looking relaxed. An ordinary Jin Dan Taoist master would not be able to withstand the blood ginseng and scarlet flame fruit. However, Su Zimo was both an immortal and demonic cultivator. Furthermore, he had formed a core for both of them. His blood qi and physique were shockingly strong and he could absorb all the energy within the two spirit herbs. Now that he was seriously injured, his spiritual power was depleted, and his flesh aura was weak. This was the most direct way for him to devour the spirit plants. After swallowing the blood ginseng and the scarlet flame fruit, Su Zimo's bloodline rumbled as it continuously digested and absorbed the energy within the two spirit materials. Coupled with his powerful self-healing ability, his physical condition was getting better and better. When Su Zimo saw that this method was effective, he started to harvest while swallowing the spiritual grasses. He didn't care what it tasted like or how hard it was. He stuffed everything into his mouth, including the skin and shell. Crunch, crunch, crunch. He chewed them into pieces and swallowed them. Li Ziyue was sweating profusely. An illusion appeared in his mind. It was as though Su Zimo was not a human, but an ancient demon that was extremely hungry, devouring everything like a Tao Tai. Su Zimo did not restrain himself when he sensed the strange gazes of the three of them. That was the only way for him to recover as quickly as possible with strong enemies outside. Before long, Su Zimo's group of 4 harvested most of the spirit materials in the herb garden, leaving only the spirit herbs near the vermilion fruit. Prior to this, Su Zimo had warned the 3 of them not to approach the vermilion fruit. At that moment, Li Ziyue could not bear to leave the spirit herbs here and could not help but head forward to harvest them. However, he was held back by Su Zimo. Don't go. Su Zimo's expression was grim as he frowned slightly and whispered, the vermilion fruit has already started. Not only was an unripe vermilion fruit not a great tonic, it was also extremely poisonous. When it was about to ripen, the vermilion fruit would absorb the life essence of all living beings in the vicinity, be it humans or demons. A scorching aura spread gradually. The first to suffer were the many spirit herbs near the vermilion fruit. Shrouded by the aura, the spirit herbs withered at a visible speed. In less than 10 breaths, many spirit herbs turned into ashes. When he saw that, Li Ziyue gulped with a sense of trepidation. Just now, if not for Su Zimo holding him back, he would have been doomed if he had charged forward and was engulfed by the scorching aura. Let's leave this place first. After swallowing many spirit herbs, Su Zimo was clearly in a much better state. His face was rosy and he was in high spirits. After leaving the underground palace, Su Zimo ignored the other cultivators and led the 4 of them out of the ruins. The 3 of them were still injured and had yet to recover. It was unsuitable for them to fight. Su Zimo did not barge into the palace forcefully. Instead, he made use of his powerful vision, hearing, and spirit perception to avoid the patrols of the otherworldly soldiers and led the 3 of them out of the palace stealthily. Outside the palace, many malevolent ghosts sensed the blood qi of the 3 of them and rushed over. A sinister wind howled and ghostly figures appeared one after another. However, the malevolent ghosts were soon scared out of their wits when they caught sight of the green-robed cultivator at the front, never to appear again. Su Zimo only stopped after sending the 3 of them out of the great Qian ruins. At that moment, dawn was breaking over the horizon. The colorful and blurry light shone on the ruins, making it look desolate and mysterious. Su Zimo turned back and surveyed the ruins for a moment before nodding. There's no one following us anymore. Peak Master Xian Yi, the 3 of you can leave now and return to the sect. Don't linger. Along the way, Su Zimo made use of the moon concealment bow to kill many cultivators that were following them. Gradually, many cultivators realized that they could not hide their tracks from Su Zimo's senses and chose to give up wisely. Zimo, you're not returning with us. Xian Yi frowned worriedly. He had lived for hundreds of years and could naturally imagine that there would be a bloodbath in the great Qian ruins a month later when the 10,000-year vermilion fruit ripens. If news of the 10,000-year vermilion fruit were to spread, all the paragons of the Jin Dan realm of the North region would gather here. In fact, there might even be people from the immortal and fiend sects rushing over. At that time, there would definitely not be any one-on-one fights. Although Su Zimo was strong in combat, he had only just formed his corps. How could he fight against so many peerless paragons and powerful factions? Zimo, we've reaped great rewards from this trip. It's time to stop. Lu Hui said earnestly, in the cultivation world, most cultivators are killed because of their greed. You're at Extreme Foundation establishment and have cultivated such a strong Jin Dan phenomenon. You still have a long path ahead of you and there's no need for you to fight to the death with them for a single vermilion fruit. Those words were from the bottom of her heart and were also the most logical and reliable solution. Xian Yi added, there are many factions that are stronger than our sect in the North region. Furthermore, this place is too far from the sect. Even if you encounter danger, the sect won't be able to save you in time. Zimo, be careful. Su Zimo smiled and nodded. Don't worry, Peak Masters. If things don't turn out well, I won't want the vermilion fruit anymore. Chapter 536. Xian Yi was relieved when he heard Su Zimo's words. Su Zimo pondered for a moment before continuing, however, I have something on and have to make a trip back. Peak Masters, please return to the sect first. There's no need to wait for me. Su Zimo was bent on obtaining the 10,000-year vermilion fruit. However, what was more important to him was the Khanate spirit fire hidden in the depths of the underground palace. Utmost treasures of the universe as such possessed spirituality and were way too rare to encounter and nurture. Since he had encountered it, there was no way Su Zimo was going to let it slip by. Not only did he have to create a new set of 27 supreme-grade flying swords, he also had to make use of the Khanate spirit fire in the underground cave to attempt to repair the mystic gold silk armor and 5 black gold arrows in his storage bag. If he succeeded, he would possess a Khanate defensive spirit weapon. Even if he was only at early stage Jin Dan, Su Zimo was confident that he would not be defeated. The killing power of the Khanate spirit weapon black gold arrows coupled with the moon concealment bow would be even more frightening. If it was another cultivator of the same combat strength, Su Zimo could not guarantee that he would be able to escape unscathed with the moon concealment bow and the black gold arrows. Zimo, you, Xian Yi frowned slightly and hesitated. He knew that Su Zimo was an extremely decisive person. Once he made up his mind, it would be difficult for others to change his mind. Xian Yi hesitated for a moment before reminding, be careful then. Don't overexert yourself. All right. Su Zimo nodded. Xian Yi and the other two had many spirit herbs and herbs in their storage bags. Coupled with their injuries, they did not dare to linger for fear of unforeseen circumstances. Summoning a spirit vessel, the three of them leaped and waved goodbye to Su Zimo before turning into streaks of light and disappearing into the horizons. Taking a deep breath of air, Su Zimo turned and headed towards the palace. He was not worried that anyone would be able to retrieve or destroy the vermilion fruit during this period of time. The vermilion fruit was about to ripen and this was the most dangerous period of time. Any living being that approached the vermilion fruit would die from its life essence. Along the way, Su Zimo noticed that many cultivators were rushing out of the ruins. To be more precise, they seemed to have been frightened by something. Most of their faces were pale as they staggered away. Oh no, oh no! A wretched cultivator shouted while panting, everyone, run! The vermilion fruit is eating us. Some of the cultivators had disheveled hair and only had one arm left. The flesh and blood on the other arm had turned into nothingness, leaving only a piece of white bone hanging by their side. They were frantically running for their lives. Suzumo sneered secretly. There were still some blind cultivators who were greedy and wanted to pick the vermilion fruit in advance. In the end, their life essence was stolen and their flesh and blood became fertilizer for the vermilion fruit. Not long after, Suzumo re-entered the underground palace. After walking for a while, Suzumo paused in his tracks and looked at the medicinal field. After Suzumo's group of 4 harvested the herb garden, it became completely bare. Only a single stalk of vermilion fruit remained, which was extremely conspicuous. But now, the surroundings of the vermilion fruit were littered with fresh white bones. Every single skeleton on the ground reached forward with their arms, as though they wanted to pick the vermilion fruit. A rough count showed that there were more than 100 skeletons around the vermilion fruit. The vermilion fruit seemed to have turned even more vibrant. Sparkling and translucent, it emitted an intoxicating fragrance that attracted living beings to approach it unknowingly. Everything had a spirit. Humans had the ability to hunt and kill other living beings. Demon beasts had the instinct to hunt, and some spirit herbs and trees could lure living beings to death as well. The range of the vermilion fruit's life essence was expanding rapidly. Initially, it was only limited to the surroundings of the medicinal field. But now, it was expanding furiously. The vermilion fruit swayed and a scarlet mist spread, shrouding the surroundings. 10 feet, 30 feet, 100 feet, there were only a few people left in the underground palace. The few cultivators hid far away with wary expressions and glared at the 10,000-year vermilion fruit for a moment before glancing at Suzumo. After confirming that nobody could pick the vermilion fruit in advance, they retreated one after another. Before long, Suzumo was the only one left in the underground palace. Of course, that was only temporary. Suzumo was certain that the Great Qian ruins would not be peaceful for the next month. The closer it was to the ripening of the vermilion fruit, the more cultivators would gather in the underground palace and the more tense the atmosphere would be, causing the situation to turn even more chaotic. The range of the vermilion fruit's life essence was expanding continuously and the mist was surging, sealing the path ahead. If Suzumo wanted to enter the cave once more, he would have to pass through the mist before him. Although Suzumo was confident in his strong physique and shocking regeneration abilities, he did not dare to take the risk and try to compete with the universal spirit fruit. Looking at the approaching mist, Suzumo pondered for a moment before reaching out with his left fingertip, slowly and carefully touching the edge of the mist. Pust! The moment his fingertip made contact with the mist, Suzumo's expression changed starkly. The flesh on his fingertip vanished at a speed visible to the naked eye, devoured by the scarlet mist. What a domineering vermilion fruit! The fingers were connected to the heart. The heart-wrenching pain almost caused Suzumo to cry out. Suzumo shuddered and retracted his palm, looking at his left hand with lingering fear. In that brief moment of contact, the flesh on his finger had already vanished, revealing the white bone within. Suzumo's gaze flickered as he reached out with his right hand, attempting to reach into the mist. It was completely intact. He could clearly sense a mysterious power that wanted to steal the life force essence from the flesh of his right hand. However, it seemed to be frightened and retreated one after another. The vermilion fruit was the strongest, and although the mist was domineering, it could not do anything to the divine phoenix bone. Unfortunately, Suzumo only had the divine phoenix bone on his right hand. It was still impossible for him to pass through the scarlet mist. Suzumo frowned. If he was stuck here and could not enter the cave, he would have to wait a month for the vermilion fruit to ripen his flying sword and repair his connate spirit weapon before the mist dissipated. However, there might be other variables by then. No, I've got to think of a way. Suzumo paced around the underground palace, thinking of a solution. After pondering for a moment, Suzumo suddenly stopped in his tracks and slapped his storage bag, retrieving a tattered bronze square tripod filled with cracks. Since the bronze square tripod could withstand the corrosion of the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile's gastric juices, it should not be an issue for it to withstand the mist as well. Su Zimo placed the bronze square tripod into the mist. True enough. The scarlet mist coiled around the bronze square tripod but could not penetrate it. It worked. Su Zimo smiled gently and leaped into the bronze square tripod. Becoming one with the tripod, he passed through the scarlet mist and arrived beside the spirit spring pool. Emerging from the bronze square tripod, Su Zimo turned back to look at the mist that was getting thicker behind him and lamented to himself, actually, the existence of the mist isn't a bad thing. At the very least, no one will be able to cross over and discover the secret of this cave for the next month. Su Zimo looked around for a moment and his ears twitched. After confirming that no one was hiding here, he pressed the mechanism on the wall of the pool. The stone slab under his feet silently slid to the sides, revealing a deep and dark tunnel. Su Zimo leaped down and vanished. Peace returned to the underground palace. Chapter 537. Within the underground cave. The fiery red lava flowed slowly, emitting a scorching aura. On a piece of land in the lava ocean, Little Fox stood on both legs and placed her tiny paws before her chest. Looking at the corpse of the fox demon in front of her, her bright eyes flashed with a hint of melancholy and confusion. She had been living in fear for the past few decades. The fire-blocking basket that was as black as a metal pot was the final treasure her mother left for her. Little Fox hid in the fire-blocking basket every day and felt like a year. It was as though she would only be safer in this small world. However, in reality, Little Fox knew that it was extremely easy for the crocodile to kill her. She had never imagined that she would be able to escape from the claws of the crocodile one day and even take revenge for her mother. Everything was all thanks to that delicate-looking scholar. The moment she caught sight of the scholar, Little Fox had a feeling that he was not a bad person. That was the reason why Little Fox reminded the scholar to watch his back. The moment the delicate-looking scholar was swallowed by the crocodile, Little Fox was completely disheartened, thinking that he was dead for sure and she would be trapped here forever. However, what happened later on scared her completely. Inside the crocodile's body, an extremely terrifying flame ignited, burning the crocodile's flesh and blood to nothing. But the delicate and pretty scholar had escaped unscathed. Left with no choice, the crocodile's essence spirit was almost shattered by a single roar from the delicate-looking scholar. Little Fox hurriedly buckled the fire-blocking basket and burned the crocodile's essence spirit to ashes. Now that she had her revenge, Little Fox's heart suddenly felt empty. She stood there in a daze for an unknown amount of time before the Little Fox's furry ears twitched. She heard the sound of footsteps. Someone was here. Little Fox was extremely alert and buckled the fire-blocking basket immediately. Hiding within, she widened her pitch-black eyes and looked outside through the hole in the fire-blocking basket. Before long, a green figure appeared from the corner. It was the delicate-looking scholar who had left in a hurry just now. Raising the fire-blocking basket, Little Fox tilted her head slightly and blinked, looking at the delicate-looking scholar. At the same time, the delicate-looking scholar turned the corner and caught sight of Little Fox immediately as well. The man and the beast just stared at each other without moving. It was more like a test of trust. Decades of captivity had made the Little Fox cautious and paranoid. She was extremely wary of strangers. Even if the delicate scholar helped her kill her enemy, she was still worried that after the crocodile left, an even more terrifying and cruel existence would appear. The Little Fox had seen the skills of the delicate and pretty scholar. She was definitely no match for him. Little Fox really didn't know what to do if this delicate scholar rushed towards her with ill intentions. Just as the Little Fox's imagination was running wild, the delicate scholar smiled and nodded at her. The Little Fox felt her heart lighten when she saw the scholarly man's smile and let down her guard. Su Zimo looked at the frightened little fellow not far away. A trace of pity flashed in his eyes as he sighed inwardly. Being imprisoned here for dozens of years, without freedom, without daylight, and living with his enemies day in and day out. Such an experience had probably caused a great deal of psychological damage to this little fellow. Su Zimo was a demonic cultivator to begin with and had even lived with Monkey, the night spirit, and other demon beasts. As such, he could vaguely sense the worry, fear and trepidation in the little fox's heart. This was a little fellow with a pitiful background. Su Zimo did not try to comfort her or approach her. At that moment, any actions that were slightly out of line could cause the little fox to feel uneasy and hostile. Su Zimo walked along the edge of the cave and headed deeper. Prior to this, he was ambushed by the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile and had to return to the underground palace to fight. He did not have the time to explore this cave. If he wanted to refine weapons here, he could not be disturbed. The scarlet mist released by the vermilion fruit shrouded the outside and no one would discover this place. All that was left was for him to check the cave thoroughly to ensure that there were no dangerous factors. The cave was extremely deep and twisted, no one knew where it led to. Along the way, Su Zimo released his spirit perception but did not sense any danger. On the contrary, the little fox raised a fire-blocking basket that covered most of its body and tiptoed behind Su Zimo like a walking pot. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat and he wanted to tease it. Suddenly, he stopped in his tracks and turned around, glaring at the little thing behind him with a bright gaze. The little fox was shocked and a look of panic flashed through its eyes as it let go of its paws instinctively. Clang! The fire-blocking basket fell to the ground motionlessly and the little fox hid within with an embarrassed expression. Su Zimo could not help but chuckle and turned to continue forward. Within the fire-blocking basket, the little fox gripped its paws tightly and was indignant. Waving its fists at Su Zimo's back view, it harumphed. In the blink of an eye, when the little fox saw that Su Zimo had gone far away, it raised the fire-blocking basket hurriedly and tiptoed to chase after him. Su Zimo had always been curious about where the lava ocean in the cave came from and how it was formed. He ventured deep into the cave, wanting to find the source of the lava. However, he realized that the surrounding temperature was rising and he could not take it anymore. Not far away, the lava flowed slowly, emitting scorching heat. Suddenly, Su Zimo's eyes flickered and he exclaimed softly. There was still a layer of scorching flames floating on the surface of the lava here. However, the layer of flames had a color and was slightly yellow. Su Zimo approached slightly before retreating hurriedly. The temperature of the yellow flames was even higher than the Khanate spirit fire. How could this be? Su Zimo narrowed his eyes and looked along the lava river. He had a feeling that the source of the lava was right ahead. Ooh! Ooh! Right then, a series of hurried cries sounded from behind Su Zimo. Su Zimo turned back and saw the little fox's fire-blocking basket at the side, panting heavily from the heat. Its fiery red fur was drenched in sweat and its body was dripping wet, as though it had just crawled out of the water. The temperature here was something that even the little fox who lived in the world of lava could not take. The little fox shook its head repeatedly, indicating to Su Zimo not to go any deeper. Su Zimo hesitated for a moment before saying, "Your cultivation realm isn't high enough, so don't follow me. I'll go in and take a look. If I can't take it, I'll definitely retreat." The moment he spoke, Su Zimo realized that his throat had already turned dry and hoarse. Su Zimo took a deep breath and felt his throat burning. Wiping away the sweat on his forehead, he crushed a few protection talismans and continued forward. After a few more turns, Su Zimo stopped in his tracks instinctively and shuddered. There was a tall volcano before him. The lava was gushing out from this volcano. The lava that was gushing out from the mouth of the volcano was golden in color. There were only a few drops of golden lava that flowed down the volcano each time, melting the rocks and flowing down, forming an incomparably majestic lava ocean like the one in the cave. Chapter 538. By the time he arrived before the volcano, Su Zimo was already drenched in sweat. The temperature of this place had already exceeded the limits of what ordinary cultivators could endure. Even with his immortal and demonic body, he could feel waves of scorching pain. Su Zimo slapped his storage bag and withdrew a superior-grade spirit weapon. The moment he took out the superior-grade spirit weapon, the spirit patterns on it dimmed. After 10 breaths, cracks appeared on the superior-grade spirit weapon and it was already showing signs of melting. So powerful. Su Zimo's pupils constricted slightly and he was secretly shocked. If an ordinary perfected Jin Dan was left here, they would most likely be scalded to death even if they did not come into contact with any sparks. If the temperature in the air was already that high, the surging lava beside it was even more terrifying. Su Zimo was certain that Khanate spirit weapons would melt into molten iron in the blink of an eye without even a single bubble. The closer he was to the volcano, the higher the temperature. Su Zimo truly could not endure it any longer. His inner core and Jin Dan circulated slowly in his blood. Qi surged, forming ancient demons one after another around him. After feeling slightly better, Su Zimo soared into the air and narrowed his gaze at the volcano not far away. Golden lava rippled within the volcano, emitting a shuddering aura that was violent and scorching. In fact, Su Zimo suspected that even Jining Jinjuan would be incinerated into ashes by the golden lava if he were to enter. That's way too scary. Su Zimo was shocked and lamented internally, this golden lava is good stuff and is much more frightening than a Khanate spirit fire. If I can store some of this, it will definitely be of great use in the future. Thereafter, Su Zimo smiled. His lips split open and a trace of blood seeped out before evaporating instantly. Naturally, that was just a random thought. Golden lava could even melt Khanate spirit weapons, there was nothing that could contain it. Just as Su Zimo was about to turn and leave, his heart skipped a beat. There was indeed an item in his storage bag that he could give it a try. Bronze square cauldron. Although it was only a broken artifact, it was able to withstand the corrosion of the scarlet-armored fiendish demon's stomach. It was unknown if it could withstand the incineration of the golden lava. Su Zimo hesitated for a long time and decided to give it a try. He could first dip 1 foot of the bronze square cauldron into the golden lava to see if it could be melted. Even if it was melted and lost a leg, it wouldn't have much of an impact on an abandoned square bronze cauldron. With this thought in mind, Su Zimo took out the bronze square cauldron and flew towards the crater. Arriving at the edge of the crater, the heat of the flames was even more terrifying. Su Zimo felt a burst of dizziness, as if he could faint at any time. The longer he stayed here, the more dangerous it would be for him. Looking at the surging golden lava under his feet, Su Zimo did not dare to hesitate. He controlled the bronze square cauldron and slowly descended into the volcano. Just as the foot of the bronze square cauldron was about to touch the golden lava, suddenly, the surface of the lava bulged, as though something was about to emerge from below. Shocked, Su Zimo hurriedly controlled the bronze square cauldron to rise into the air. Even so, there was still a lot of golden lava that splattered onto the walls of the cauldron before sliding down rapidly. Su Zimo's gaze froze. It was safe and sound. There was no trace of the spot where the golden lava splattered onto the bronze square cauldron. It was done. Su Zimo was delighted. The golden lava that had just bulged subsided once more, as though it was just an ordinary ripple. Su Zimo controlled the bronze square cauldron to descend and filled it with more than half of the golden lava before leaping away. Although the golden lava was terrifying and violent, as though it could destroy and incinerate everything, it was stored in the bronze square cauldron quietly, as though it was isolated from the outside world. Su Zimo held the bronze square cauldron and could not feel any warmth. The body of the cauldron was as cold as ever, sealing the scorching heat of the golden lava within. Su Zimo left the crater of the volcano and carefully placed the bronze square cauldron in a storage bag, hanging it on the other side of his waist. Not long after Su Zimo left, the golden lava bulged and spewed out from the crater of the volcano once more. On the surface of the magma, there was something floating up and down. It was faintly discernible, resembling a coffin. This coffin was sparkling and translucent. It was unknown what material it was made of, but it did not show any signs of melting in the golden lava. The coffin floated on the surface of the lava and a woman could be vaguely seen lying within the coffin. The woman's hands were clasped in front of her chest, revealing two jade-like arms that resembled lotus roots. Her skin was smooth and exquisite like ivory. The woman had a graceful figure and gave off a lazy aura as she laid there. She was charming, as though she was asleep. The coffin was pushed by the surging lava and spun slowly, revealing a peerless face that was soul-stirring. Initially, the peerless woman's eyes were tightly shut. All of a sudden, her long eyelashes fluttered slightly and her beautiful eyes were about to open. An aura that caused one's heart to tremble gradually filled the air. The peerless woman could wake up at any moment. There was a brief pause. The peerless woman quietened down once more, as though she had fallen asleep once more. The translucent coffin slowly sank into the golden lava, disappearing without a trace. Peace returned to the crater of the volcano, as though nothing had happened. Su Zimo knew nothing about what happened at the crater of the volcano in the depths of the cave. Initially, he was not used to the temperature of the cave. This time, going back the same way he came from the crater, he actually felt a trace of coldness. He couldn't help but sigh, that crater is the real lava purgatory. Compared to it, this place is like a paradise. The little fox stood on the spot and heaved a sigh of relief when she saw Su Zimo return safely. Su Zimo was her benefactor after all. Even if she was wary of Su Zimo, the little fox did not wish for him to meet with any misfortune. Furthermore, she had witnessed Su Zimo's demon transformation. In the little fox's heart, Su Zimo was a member of the demon race as well. When he arrived near the entrance of the cave, Su Zimo stopped in his tracks and assumed a lotus position, beginning to heal and recover his stamina. He did not have the chance to rest for the entire night. From the moment he started fighting the otherworldly soldiers until dawn, he did not rest for the entire night. In the middle of it, he was even nearly killed by a fiend demon and his life was hanging by a thread. Be it in terms of stamina or mental state, Su Zimo was already at his limits. Prior to this, he had consumed many spirit herbs in the underground palace. Despite the immense amount of energy contained within those herbs, Su Zimo's body did not absorb much of it and it was all stored within his body. Now that he was circulating and recuperating, the energy essence surged out and fused into every inch of his flesh. Su Zimo's injuries and stamina were recovering rapidly. In the blink of an eye, a day and night passed. Su Zimo's gaze was clear and his cheeks were rosy. Brimming with energy, he stood up and howled into the skies. Ah! His howl was loud and clear and filled with energy. There were no signs of injuries or fatigue on Su Zimo's body. Sensing the situation within his body, Su Zimo could not help but smile. Those spirit herbs contained rich fire attribute spirit energy. Coupled with the environment of this place, Su Zimo was pleasantly surprised to discover that his cultivation had improved significantly. Chapter 539. Of course, even though his cultivation had improved significantly, Su Zimo was still a long way from mid-stage Jin Dan. One had to know that he had just stepped onto the path of alchemy. Disregarding the journey from Pingyang town to the Great Qian ruins, it had only been a day and 2 nights. If not for the fact that he had experienced multiple battles in the Great Qian ruins, he would have needed at least a couple of years to reach his current cultivation realm just by cultivating in seclusion. Tempering oneself between life and death and fighting while bathed in blood was the easiest way to grow. Furthermore, he had such a unique environment with the help of spirit herbs that were more than 10,000 years old. That was also the reason why many cultivators would often choose to head out to train after they reached a bottleneck. While there would definitely be dangers in heading out to train, there would be opportunities as well. Su Zimo calmed himself down and prepared to attempt to repair the Khanate spirit weapon. Not far away, the little fox sat quietly on the fire-blocking basket, looking over with sparkling eyes that were as bright as black gems. For the entire day and night, the little fox had been watching Su Zimo the entire time. Even though she did not get close, Su Zimo could clearly sense that the little fox was much less wary of him now. Given the little fellow's cautious personality in the past, she would definitely raise the fire-blocking basket with both hands, prepared to trap him in and hide at any moment. There was no way she would be as relaxed as she was right now. Su Zimo smiled. "Little thing, I'm preparing to refine the spirit weapon. You can't disturb me during this period of time." A look of indignance flashed through the little fox's eyes when she heard Su Zimo call her little thing. However, immediately after, the little fox thought about it and felt a little touched. Behind this sentence, there was a kind of trust. The combat strength of this refined scholar was extremely frightening, and he could imprison her with ease. That way, she would not disturb his weapon refinement process. But now, the other party had let down his guard against her and chose to trust her. Could this person have ulterior motives? The little fox blinked her eyes, still somewhat worried. After being imprisoned here by the scarlet-armored gigantic crocodile for dozens of years, the little fox's heart was way too fragile, and any slight movement would arouse her suspicions. Other than her deceased mother, she had always been wary of others. She was terrified. Just as the little fox was letting her imagination run wild, the scholarly man on the other side had already taken out a dark gold arrow from his storage bag and started to refine it. Before entering the elementary ancient battlefield, Su Zimo had obtained a Khanate spirit weapon forging technique from the Great Zhou Palace as a reward for the sect competition. It also mentioned a method to repair damaged Khanate spiritual weapons. The so-called damage did not refer to the spirit weapon being damaged. Instead, it referred to the situation where the sixth Khanate spirit pattern was broken. There were no impurities in the damaged Khanate spirit weapon. In other words, by using the Khanate spirit fire to forge Khanate spirit weapons, one could completely skip the first 4 steps of material selection, smelting, molding, and tempering. After burning the spirit weapon to a crimson-red state, one could begin to gather spirit. After condensing 5 spirit patterns in a row, he used the Khanate spirit fire to reconnect the broken 6th spirit pattern. If he failed once in the middle, the inborn spiritual weapon would be completely destroyed. Since ancient times, even the best blacksmiths couldn't guarantee that they could continuously gather 6 spirit patterns in one go. Therefore, in the eyes of other weapon refinement masters, this forging technique was of little value and was impossible to achieve. However, in the hands of Su Zimo, there was a chance that a Khanate spirit weapon could be repaired. Using his spirit perception, he could guarantee a 100% success rate in spirit gathering. In the elementary ancient battlefield, Su Zimo found 5 damaged black gold arrows in the ruins of Elixir Pool sect. There was only one mystic gold silk armor, and it was an extremely precious defensive Khanate spirit weapon. Su Zimo intended to test it out with the black gold arrow first. He controlled the black gold arrow and placed it above the Khanate spirit fire, burning it continuously. With the passage of time, the body of the arrow was burned to a red state. From the inside to the outside, there was a trace of sparkling and translucent light, like a fiery red jade. Su Zimo began to gather spirit. A single spirit pattern. 2 spirit patterns. 3 spirit patterns. 3 spirit patterns were formed in a single breath without any pause. Given his attainments in weapon refinement, there was a high chance of him condensing the first 3 spirit patterns even without his spirit perception. Without stopping, Su Zimo began to condense the 4th spirit pattern. His spirit perception warned him. Give up. He tried again. No, he had to give up. He repeated the process and the 4th spirit pattern was only condensed on his 17th attempt. Su Zimo took a deep breath and began to condense the 5th spirit pattern. His luck and condition were decent and he managed to condense the 5th spirit pattern on his 3rd attempt. The black gold arrow was a Khanate spirit weapon to begin with, and even though it was destroyed, there were no impurities in the arrow. That was the reason why Su Zimo was able to condense the 5th spirit pattern so easily. If Su Zimo had chosen, smelted, molded and tempered the arrow himself, he would definitely not have been able to create such a pure and flawless arrow. Therefore, the reason why he was able to create the perfect spirit weapon, Blood Quencher, back then was due to many factors and luck. Right now, the black gold arrow was already a perfect spirit weapon. Su Zimo was not satisfied. The most important step was the final step. Although perfect spirit weapons were rare and had extraordinary might, there was still a huge difference between them and Khanate spirit weapons. It was a qualitative leap. Khanate spirit fires were born with spirituality to begin with. Using the foundation of the broken 6th spirit pattern on the black gold arrow, Su Zimo attempted to condense and repair the spirit pattern bit by bit. The process was long and repetitive. In fact, he did not even know if he could succeed. However, Su Zimo had never thought of giving up. His gaze was resolute as he tried repeatedly in an orderly manner. An entire day and night passed by. Even the little fox was tired from watching from afar. Her eyelids were heavy and she dozed off for a few times. Each time she opened her eyes, Su Zimo would sit there in the same posture as before. His movements were monotonous and repetitive. For the entire day and night, not only did Su Zimo not rest, he maintained a high level of exhaustion. It was a huge test of his stamina and mental state. Of course, it was worth it. Su Zimo could clearly see that the 6th spirit pattern on the black gold arrow, the initially broken Khanate spirit pattern, was showing signs of recovery and was getting clearer. The spirit energy fluctuation on the black gold arrow was also getting more obvious. 2 hours later. The little fox was drowsy. However, she was jolted awake by a strong light and instinctively opened her eyes. The initially dull black gold arrow in front of Su Zimo was now shimmering with 6 bedazzling lights, exuding a terrifying sharpness that seemed like it could penetrate everything. The little fox knew that Su Zimo had succeeded. She didn't know why, but she felt a little happy in her heart. Her pair of fox eyes smiled like crescent moons. Su Zimo put away the black gold arrow and was delighted when he saw the spirit patterns on it. It was a success. With the black gold arrow and the moon concealment bow, his killing power would rise to another level. If he could repair the black gold arrow, he could naturally repair the mystic gold silk armor as well. This meant that apart from the coiling dragon seal, the mystic gold silk armor, black gold arrow and the quasi-Khanate moon concealment bow were the Khanate spirit weapons that Su Zimo possessed right now. Even the legacy disciples of the super sects, ancient aristocratic families and top factions of Tianhuang mainland might not be as wealthy as him. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.